Welcome back to the channel. This is Trendy Storm and you are watching What If Kid Naruto was trained by Kyuubi and Jiraiya. If you enjoy this video, please like, share and subscribe to this channel. Now wasting no more time, let's start the story.
Two men are standing atop the Hokage tower, looking out over the village hidden in the leaves. Everything appeared calm as the village appeared to be enveloped in twilight in the afternoon. The newest generation of genin, who recently graduated from the academy, will only be delivered to Konoha today with the exception of a certain duck-haired Uchiha, who was ecstatic as he appeared to take another step towards his lifelong goal of vengeance. All of the excited new shinobi ran home to receive congratulations from their parents with the exception of a certain orange-wearing blonde who had failed his genin exams. Everyone in the village was happy and the world was in harmony. One of the men asks in a peculiar tone, "So the brat didn't make it?" This man had two red tear-like marks on his face, long, spiky white hair, and a height of more than 6 feet. This man was Konoha's spymaster, Jiraiya of the Densetsu no Sannin. Sarutobi Hiruzen, an old man in red and white robes, takes a drag from his pipe and says, "That's right Jiraiya-kun, it seems despite his best efforts Naruto-kun was unable to pass the genin graduation exam. I'm sure you can figure out why I called you just before you were planning to leave." The Toad Sage nods, giving the most recently added of the enormous faces on the Hokage monument a fleeting, nearly imperceptible glance. "The deal I made with Kakashi 4 years ago, right? If the kid graduates then Kakashi gets to have him in his team, but if he fails I take him as my apprentice and have him rotate through the teams when I have to manage my spy network." A ring of smoke is extinguished by the Hokage. "He's quite distraught Jiraiya-kun, had you not been in the neighborhood I would have found some way to pass him even if it was only on a technicality. If he's anything like me, it's probably better that Kakashi isn't his teacher." Jiraiya shrugs. "On the other hand, do you want me to tell him about the fox? If so, I can have him call forth Gamabunta using its chakra, as I had originally intended." "No, unless you had no other option, I would prefer that you didn't. I don't see any reason to tell the poor boy right now, and I want Naruto-kun to stay in the dark until he attained Shunin rank, not with his heart still heavy from failing his exams, in particular. I suppose I could get him started on the Rasengan." Jiraiya rubs his chin and murmurs. "Jiraiya-kun, are you certain that's a smart idea?" His inability to control his chakras was the main reason he was unable to graduate in the first place. "What more are you expecting me to do, then? I am at a loss for ideas. Why not address the additional issues that prevented him from earning his degree? To solve the issue he had with the Bunshin no Jutsu, fix his taijutsu, teach him genjutsu, and maybe practice chakra control. Additionally, you could instruct him in politics, strategy, and a host of other topics he would need to know in order to become Hokage. Roughly that I want to give the boy more muscle for a purpose. In summary, there are individuals who intend to hunt the Jinchuriki. I'll go into more detail later. Strong individuals who are fully aware of their commitments at this point. Naruto is no more than a civilian and has a slim chance of surviving." The unusually solemn expression on his student's face causes Sarutobi's eyes to narrow. "How strong? S-rank Orochimaru and all of them were recently expelled by that brat Itachi. I learned about them in this way." Hiruzen was certain that Itachi would never do anything to harm the village, but from Jiraiya's words, it sounded like it was more than one person. The Sandame's eyes enlarged at the mention of Itachi's name. The Uchiha was easily S-rank in and of himself. "Jiraiya-kun, how long do we have?" The grimacing Jiraiya says, 4 years at the most." The Sandame tries to calm himself by puffing on his pipe, but even though he has to worry about the Kyuubi's Jinchuriki as the Hokage, there is a part of the old man who genuinely saw the yellow-haired boy as a grandson and wants to do everything in his power to protect him. The Sandame Hokage is no fool, and he knows that when this mysterious group starts hunting the Jinchuriki, he himself would not be able to defend his surrogate grandson because of his advanced age, and that the number of shinobi he has that could defeat an S-rank nuke nin while defending even a Jonin-level shinobi was at best in the single digits. "First, go introduce yourself to your new trainee. I have to give this some thought. Make sure to provide me with those specifics later." After giving a nod, the Toad Sage vanishes in a cloud of smoke. It was so unfair. Uzumaki Naruto sighs for what feels like the 1000th time today. Had it not been for that one jutsu, he would have passed his genin exam, the dead last, yes, and would have been a super badass shinobi, one step closer to realizing his dream of becoming Hokage and being recognized. However, he failed because of the foolish Bunshin, which meant he would not have received a headband, become a shinobi, or become Hokage. Naruto lets out another sigh and throws a pebble at the river in front of him. The round stone bounces off the water's surface a few times before sinking. The yellow-haired Uzumaki was deep in the forest in front of a small river at the moment, and he wanted to stew in his depression by himself to avoid being discovered. Naruto had changed the jacket of his orange jumpsuit to a dark blue t-shirt with an orange spiral motif. Orange was a color for awesome shinobi, not failure shinobi wannabe civilians. Naruto feels his anger building as he picks up another round stone, this one the size of his palm. It was so damned unfair. He had struggled alone for the past 4 years and would have graduated if it weren't for that dumb clone jutsu. He had no one to turn to for support, no parents to return home to, no teachers to help him, no friends to encourage him, and he had barely improved his grades. Naruto's eyes widened, and he heard a loud cracking sound fill the clearing as a sharp pain shot through his hand. He looked down and saw that the stone he had been holding had broken, the shards embedding themselves in his hand, and he let his legs fall out from under him, landing on his butt. The blonde boy pulled out the shards from his hand, ignoring the blood dripping from his palm, and he started to stare into the river. Thinking about his failure, he wasn't really paying attention to what he was seeing, his mind only able to focus on the fact that his dream was forever out of reach, and the river just so happened to be in his line of sight. If he had been looking at his reflection in the river, he would have seen its irises change from blood red to a normal sky blue. The boy was wearing bright orange for Kami's sake, so how in the world was it so difficult to find him? The Toad Sage complains as he trudges through the village, having searched for him for a good 2 hours and not finding a hair or hide of him. As he passes a hot spring, Jiraiya can't help but look toward the women's area of the springs, where he can hear feminine laughter and water splashing over the fence. The Toad Sage lets out a perverse giggle of his own and sneaks over to collect some research. The Toad Sage's eyes wander over the numerous nude women in the baths, their modesty only preserved by the unfortunate density of the stream at certain places. The old man, cautiously making his way to the designated peak hole for this hot spring, giggles once more as he looks through the circular warp in the wooden fence surrounding the baths. "Have you heard?" one of the women in the bath remarks. "Perhaps the Hokage will finally get rid of it, after the Kyuubi brat failed his graduation exam." Perhaps he did already? Nobody would actually miss it. According to Jiraiya, the two women who are speaking are merely civilians, unaware of the true nature of the Kyuubi's Jinchuriki, but that knowledge did nothing to ease the pain in his heart, which was only made worse by the realization that he had failed the boy in his role as his godfather. According to what his sensei had told him over the years, there are only a few people in the village who genuinely accept and care for Naruto, and even then, when he included Jiraiya and himself, 2 of them never even bothered to engage with the boy or have any real influence on his life. "I should be consoling the child right now, but I'm here doing this instead." The Toad Sage, whose mood has been spoiled, gets up and frowns sorrowfully. Jiraiya performs a quick shunshin in a clearing in the forest. He could do this inside the village, but it was easier when he was in a place where nature was less disturbed. The Toad Sage lets a small amount of natural energy mix with his chakra, not enough to initiate Sage mode, but enough so that he can sense the energies in the area, and he uses that to zero in on his godson's chakra. Although each person has a unique chakra, Naruto's chakra had always felt bright and energetic, but for some reason, it is now dull and lethargic. Jiraiya knew that Naruto would be depressed due to his inability to graduate, but he didn't anticipate that it would affect him this much. As he stands up and releases the last of his natural energy, the Toad Sage performs another round of fast shunshins and emerges in a wooded area close to the village's edge. He hears the sound of water running, and after trudging through more shrubbery, the Toad Sage encounters his godson, who is sitting cross-legged with his hands in his lap. Jiraiya thinks the boy hasn't noticed him yet, but how is he going to accomplish this? When Naruto hears a stone crunching beneath his feet, he raises an eyebrow and notices a big man with long, spiky white hair approaching him. For some reason, he reminds him of the old man in a comforting way. "Aro Gigi, what do you want?" The man's flaws were discovered mid-step. "What the devil?" As if it were the most obvious thing in the world, Naruto says, "Well, you're old and I feel like you're pretty perverted Titiibeo. Who are you anyway?" "Good instincts," Jiraiya muses before leaping back up and adopting a kabuki stance. "Oh, so you're curious about my identity? I'll tell you then. I am one whose name is only uttered in whispered tones and awe-filled voices in the lands of the elemental nations. Just saying my name will have the women running and yelling my name with lust in their eyes and the men crouched on the ground in terror, whether you're in Kumo, Mizu, Suna, Iwa, or Konoha. My name is well known throughout the entire country, and I am the great sage, the gallant Toad Sage Jiraiya-sama, the most masculine of the Densetsu no Sannin." The Toad Sage Jiraiya starts to perspire as Naruto looks at him with the same narrow-eyed look as the forest falls silent around them. Despite his outside expression, Naruto was actually very excited on the inside. While he had no idea what most of the mumbo-jumbo the old man had said meant, it sounded like the guy was a super awesome shinobi. It was a stretch, but Could you teach me how to be Hokage Ttibeo, Ero Sennin? Naruto exclaims, his blue eyes gleaming with optimism. And why should someone as awesome as me train someone like you? The Toad Sage had to use all of his self-control not to just agree with a haughty expression on his face and his arms crossed. Jiraiya declares. Jiraiya is shown his godson crouching on the ground with a palpable aura of depression surrounding him, rather than the loud rebuke he had been anticipating. That's right, you're most likely a very strong shinobi who placed first in his class. I'm a dead last dropout. Why would you want to train me? As he sketches cryptic images into the gravel beneath him, Naruto utters these words. Jiraiya approaches and squats down, placing his hand on the dejected boy's head, ignoring the tiny ache in his chest caused by the unintentional reminder of his old best friend. I never said I wouldn't train you, Brad. I asked why. He says you want to be Hokage, but why? The question, why did you want to be Hokage? Was legitimate, and the boy looks up from his imaginary canvas to the owner of the hand resting on his head. The old man was the Hokage, and everyone respected and looked up to him. So that everyone will acknowledge me like they do the old man Ttibeo. However, why do you desire that? The old man says he's willing to train me, so I might as well respond to him. But that led to another problem. Why was being acknowledged so important? Well, that was, Naruto turns to give the old fart a piece of his mind, but all he sees in her eyes is genuine concern. Because nobody ever looks at me or even talks to me, and when they do, it's as if they're staring at something else, instead of being perceived as whatever the hell everyone else is seeing. I want to be recognized and seen as myself. I want to be Hokage because of this. With a loud declaration and a finger pointing, Naruto addresses the still crouching Toad Sage, who is now wearing a tiny smile. Very good instincts, Jiraiya thinks as he reaches his remarkable height. Okay, Brad, that's a good goal, and I'll help you. But I'll need your assistance. Well, how may I assist you? Since he was only a failing academy student and this Jiraiya guy appeared to be an accomplished shinobi, Naruto asks, his bewilderment visible in his eyes. Although I have a very important job that requires me to leave the village frequently, I will teach you how to become the Hokage to prepare you for what I want to teach you. I want you to practice the fundamentals and switch between the other Jonin sensei. During that time I'll give each of you a task to complete before I return. But aside from that, please concentrate on mastering the beginner material. What? Why don't you just teach me some really amazing jutsu that will make me a Hokage right away? With a sigh, Jiraiya places his hands on his godson's shoulders and says, Naruto, I have to say that you have the right attitude for your dream, but it's the wrong one at the same time. What do you mean, Ero Sennin? Asks Naruto, tilting his head in apparent confusion. With a tick mark on the back of his head, Jiraiya muses, Brat, you have the right reason, but the wrong way of going about it. That's not going away anytime soon, is it? Actually, I believe that this will be your very first project. What is the best weapon the Hokage possesses? Obviously, his jutsu, Naruto answers right away. The Toad Sage sighs and strokes Naruto's hair, saying, that's not quite right, Brat, consider it, and tomorrow we'll discuss it. Okay. It is becoming quite late. I'll start you on a B-ranked kinjutsu that I believe would be ideal for you if you can figure it out. Alright. Just keep an eye on me, Ero Sennin, and I'll figure this out quickly. With a frustrated grin on his face, Jiraiya stands beside the river as Naruto rushes into the forest after finishing his piece. That went more smoothly than anticipated. It's time to tell Sarutobi-sensei those specifics. As Naruto strolls through Konoha with his eyes closed, his mind is working harder than ever before, attacking the question, what is the Hokage's greatest weapon? The Ero Sennin had already rejected the answer, which was, of course, his jutsu. Naruto was far more clever and intelligent than people would think, despite what the civilians, his teachers, his peers, and pretty much everyone else in the village thought. Of course, this was tempered by the fact that a large portion of his mind power is used to pull practical jokes in a shinobi-populated village, as well as his stubborn personality, but Naruto was not quite as stupid as people thought. Okay. So engrossed in his thoughts that Naruto didn't notice as he unconsciously walks to the ramen stand. Realizing where he is, Naruto decides to go for some ramen before he sleeps. If ninjutsu isn't the Hokage's best weapon, then what is? Hi, Tsuchiji-san. Before noticing the other person in the stand, who is staring at the boy with the noodles hanging from his mouth, Naruto says, Hey, Iruka-sensei. How are you? Naruto smiles as he says this. As the boy he had been searching for all afternoon approaches and orders a miso ramen, the man merely stares with noodles hanging from his mouth. After the graduation exams, Iruka felt sorry for the yellow-haired prankster because he knew that the boy had really tried his hardest but had failed, and the fact that the man had not been able to find him only made his depression worse. Seeing how late it was, Iruka decided to get a quick bite to eat before heading home to finishing the graduate's papers. When he realized his noodles were still hanging from his mouth, he quickly slurps them up before turning to face his former pupil. "Are you okay? I thought you would still be upset about failing the exams, so I was searching for you earlier." "Oh yeah, I was upset at first, but then this Jiraiya guy said he would train me to become the best Hokage ever," Naruto says with a constant smile. Naruto misses Iruka's shocked expression as he returns to his ramen after finishing his piece. After choking on some of the noodles he had been eating, the man coughs and beats his chest. "Jiraiya. Like in Desu no Sanin's Jiraiya, who was the Yondaime Hokage's trainer. Naruto was the one who choked this time." "What? The Yondaime were trained by that sexy old man? That's fantastic. I will quickly take that old man's hat." Ibeo. Naruto gives the air a fist pump. Iruka smiles, letting out a little sigh at Naruto's antics, and he genuinely feels happy that his former student is finally getting the attention he deserves because he was too busy last year to help the yellow-haired boy, as Mizuki had been expelled for being a traitor, and as a result, he was left to teach the graduating class by himself. Iruka had been strong-armed into helping the clan heirs in his class, essentially ignoring the civilian and orphan students, including Naruto. In fact, as far as he could recall, only 2 students who were not affiliated with any clan had passed, and the orphan one of those 2 had barely passed after looking at Naruto's grades. Iruka was certain that if someone had taken the time to help the hyperactive boy, he would have had no trouble passing the graduation exam, even with his incapable of performing the bunshin. "I'm happy for you, Naruto-kun." Iruka smiles and says, "Don't be afraid to come to me if you ever need help with anything, and I'll do my best to help. I apologize for not being able to assist you myself over the past 12 months. Iruka-sensei, don't worry about it, I'll be a shinobi in no time at all." Ibeo. As he starts to eat his most recent bowl of ramen, Naruto pauses and says, "There is something you could help me with right now. I'm having trouble answering a question that Ero Sennin asked me." Iruka laughs, pointing out that Ero Sennin was Naruto's way of addressing Jiraiya, whose perversity was as legendary as he was. "Alright, Naruto-kun, did he ask you what?" To highlight his fox-like features, Naruto squints his eyes and crosses his arms. "What is the Hokage's strongest weapon?" he asked. "I claimed it was his jutsu, but Ero Sennin disagreed." The look of disbelief on Naruto's face makes Iruka laugh. "He was right, Naruto-kun." "What? The village's strongest person must be the Hokage, right? What could be more significant than his jutsu, then?" "His mind, Naruto," Iruka says, tapping his head with his index finger. "Sandaime-sama seems to know the answers to everything, don't you? A Kage must possess both strength and wisdom, not only powerful." Naruto remarks, "Oh well, I guess that means I really can't be Hokage," as a palpable aura of melancholy forms over him. "What's the matter, Naruto-kun?" Iruka inquires. "I'm not sure what he said that triggered his student, and I'm a little worried about this out-of-character behavior. You mentioned that the Hokage's mind is his most powerful weapon, correct?" "Well, I have a terrible mind." Naruto curls into a ball and says, "I couldn't even graduate the academy after 3 tries. His depression is enveloping him." It appears that Naruto's headstrong nature had betrayed him for the first time. Iruka muses, realizing that although the boy had remained in the academy for 6 years despite failing twice, Naruto's character of never giving up until the very end had been undermined by his failure. Even though he was still able to become a shinobi, the fact that he still failed and was now a failure in his own eyes didn't help. "Hey Naruto-kun, that's not true. It takes a lot of something to do the pranks you do in the village." "Really?" As he peeks out from the ball he has curled up in, Naruto asks. "Yes." Iruka says, "Consider it, the pranks could cause a great deal of damage if you were in an enemy village. Setting those up in a shinobi village requires a very astute mind instead of constantly charging in without a plan. I'm sure you would make an excellent shinobi if you would just take a moment to sit down and use your mind to solve a problem." After slowly uncurling up and grinning at his old instructor, Naruto finishes the broth in his bowl and asks, "Do you really think I can be Hokage?" With a strange expression in his eyes, Naruto asks. The man with the scar across the bridge of his nose stands up, places enough cash on the table to cover his own expenses as well as those of his former pupil, and places a hand on the boy's shoulder while grinning candidly. "Naruto-kun, I believe you can accomplish anything you set your mind to. Just keep in mind to take it slowly and occasionally use that device in between your ears." The Sandaime smiles as he observes Naruto's interaction with his former teacher. "Jiraiya-kun, you seem to have done a good job." Naruto-kun returns to his former self. As his godson heads back to his empty apartment, Jiraiya frowns from his seat on the windowsill. staring at his sensei's crystal ball and watching the smile fade from his face as his lips thin to a faint frown, complete with empty eyes. Not really, Jiraiya says. I know you saw it just as clearly as I did, but I'm sure the kid will be in here this time tomorrow morning yelling that he's going to take that hat from you. His self-esteem was severely damaged even more than before. I wish I could have been there for the child. This shouldn't be the case for Minato's son. He is not worthy of living this way. Jiraiya-kun, I'm sure you're not the only one who feels that way. The Sandaime recalls a previous exchange with the silver-haired shinobi. Kakashi-kun actually dropped by and requested that Naruto be placed under his care when you aren't in the village. Have you confirmed with him? The Sandaime shakes his head. No. I was actually planning on having Naruto rotate through the Jonin senseis so he could work on his weaknesses. Jiraiya asks. Jiraiya mentions his spy network and how it frequently kept him away from the village for months at a time, saying, I'm sure Kakashi feels guilty for nothing being able to be there for the brat, but for him it was a choice unlike me. In relation to that, how are you going to instruct the boy? It sounds like you're going to be even busier than before because of this Akatsuki group that is hiding in the shadows. As Sarutobi attempted to glare him in the head, Jiraiya looked sheepishly to the side and said, well, once he signs the summoning contract, I can send him a scroll every other week. Jiraiya-kun, I believed you had promised to make up for the previous 12 years by spending more time with him. The Sandaime is reprimanding his pupil, who appears to be clearly guilty. It's not like I can do anything. I mean, it's not like, actually, hey sensei. According to the Sandaime face palms, no, Jiraiya-kun, you cannot take Naruto-kun with you when you leave the village. With a bird-like squawk, Jiraiya asks, why not? It would be ideal. I could care for and train the brat, protect him from Akatsuki, and keep up my spy network at the same time. Furthermore, even though I'm not quite as old as you, I'm getting on in years. I could teach Naruto to look after my network of spies. It's flawless. As he rubs his head, the Sandaime whispers, Naruto-kun won't like it. You know that being Hokage is his dream. If he's constantly out of the village, he can't really do that. Details. The Toad Sage says, dismissing his teacher's worries, it helps acclimate him to shinobi life rather than the idealized nonsense that most academy students perceive it to be. Additionally, the brat will have no trouble maintaining my spy network and acting as the Hokage with a particular jutsu I have in mind for him. Oh, furthermore, what is this jutsu? Sarutobi raises an eyebrow in response. Bunshin, the cage. Given his enormous chakra reserves and inability to use the Bunshin, Jiraiya exclaims, it's the ideal jutsu for him. Why are you staring at me that way when the brat could handle my spy network while he just leaves a Bunshin here to handle the paperwork? As the Sandaime's face changes from one of horror, disgust, rage, and pure admiration, Jiraiya slowly backs away. So that is the answer, Sarutobi murmurs in a reverent voice. That is the answer to my plight. I will no longer toil beneath the paperwork, which is a cruel mistress. He and the other Sannin had discovered the paperwork secret many years before Orochimaru had even defected, but they had chosen to keep it a secret from their sensei. As a joke, Jiraiya jumps out the window, sweating, thinking that it might not have been such a good idea as a wild laughter permeates the night. What have you got for me, brat? The next day, Jiraiya and Naruto are sitting in front of the same river where they first met. Naruto is wearing his orange jumpsuit again. You do realize that the Hokage's mind is his greatest weapon? Naruto hesitantly asks. Jiraiya grinned, seemingly accepting the answer even though the boy had received it from his old teacher. That's right, brat, I'll give you the jutsu I promised you in a moment, but first I want you to make me a promise. All right, Ero Sennin, you got it. What's the jutsu now? Naruto remarks, his eyes essentially glimmering. Okay, buddy, it's known as the Kage Bunshin no Jutsu. As he says that, Jiraiya waits for his new apprentice to start bouncing around about how awesome the name sounds, but instead he hears the sound of water running over the bedrock. He looks down to see his godson once more carving symbols into the gravel, with a cloud of depression over his head. Wow, a Bunshin Jutsu, when the reason I couldn't graduate was because of the Bunshin, way to kick a man while he's down, Ero Sennin. With a sigh, the Toad Sage approaches and strikes his godson in the head, saying, brat, do you know why all of your clones failed so badly? Naruto shakes his head and says, it's because you were using too much chakra on them. That explains why your clones all appear so ill and nearly lifeless. You don't trust me? Use as little chakra as possible to create a Bunshin. A roar of triumph erupts from Naruto's throat as he leaps back and points an accusing finger at his image, which, although not a passable Bunshin, is far better than the sickly, nearly dead copies that he is used to. Naruto nods, curiosity written on his face. After creating the necessary seal, he molds as little chakra as he can into it before expelling it in a puff of smoke. The smoke clears, revealing a pale copy of Naruto. Those dumb academy assistants kept telling me I wasn't using enough chakra, even though I knew my clones always looked better when I used less. It turns out that Naruto-sama, the legendary Uzumaki, was correct all along. Jiraiya waves his godson over and says, "Alright brat, calm down, calm down. So the jutsu I want to teach you is, as I said before, the Kage Bunshin no Jutsu and its more powerful variant the Taiju Kage Bunshin no Jutsu," he says, concealing a frown as he watches his godson practice. The Toad Sage mentally reminds himself to share that small piece of information with his sensei. "I only need you to recall 3 of the many distinctions between this jutsu and standard Bunshin, you understand? Well, the first is that the clones that this jutsu creates are solid, meaning that unlike the normal Bunshin, which are just illusions, these can actually interact with their environment," Naruto says, nodding, his entire focus on his newest sensei. The second reason this jutsu is called a kinjutsu is that it divides the user's chakra equally among all the clones, making it inaccessible to many. Given how large your chakra reserve is in terms of genin, I don't think that will be an issue for you. Pay close attention because the final point also relates to the commitment I want you to make to me. The Nidaime Hokage developed the Kage Bunshin Jutsu for infiltration and stealth missions. This is due to the fact that when the Kage Bunshin dispels something, the user also learns it. As Naruto is about to object, Jiraiya raises a hand and says, "I know it's boring, but a Hokage needs to be knowledgeable and strong, not just strong. Now, the promise I want you to make to me is that whenever we're training or are training with another sensei, or even if you're bored, I want you to send a clone to the library to read the longest reigning Hokage, not the longest reigning Kage period. Is Sarutobi Sensei what is one of his nicknames, do you know? He didn't earn that moniker by being a brawny idiot, as the professor, and I can assure you." Though he knew the old man was awesome, Naruto didn't realize how awesome he was. His eyes light up as he elevates the status of his surrogate grandfather figure in his mind. "All right, Ero Sennin. I'll finish all the books in the village library by tomorrow, so teach me that jutsu, Tt Ibeo." Jiraiya, who had been saying that a lot this morning, sighs, "Calm down, brat, you need to be careful about the memory feedback. You must exercise caution when receiving all of those memories from your clones to avoid putting yourself in a coma in order to keep the mental feedback from becoming too intense. I usually refresh the Kage Bunshin every 3 hours. This is the hand seal, and this is how the chakra is shaped." Hitaki Kakashi liked to think of himself as a simple man, and the few things he truly valued in life were his icha, the values he inherited from his dead best friend Obito, and the small number of people he held close to his heart, including one Uzumaki Naruto, the little ball of sunshine he had adopted after the death of his sensei. Although it was too painful for the copy nin to speak to the boy up close because the boy looked like a chibi clone of his father, how the other villagers couldn't see that was still a mystery to the silver-haired man. However, Kakashi had changed the milk in Naruto's refrigerator more than a couple of times, and the majority of his contributions to helping Naruto as the boy grew were more of the killing Iwa assassins who wanted to kill the yellow flashy's son variety. The point was that, despite his inability to look the child in the face, Kakashi genuinely cared for his surrogate father's son, and as a result, the copy nin was compelled to act upon seeing the scene. "Why in the world won't you let me in, lady?" a certain prankster with yellow hair yells. An old woman in her late 60s who works at the library's front desk frowns and says, "We don't let your kind in here, so go and don't come back." She raises a hand to strike the child, but it stops as it swings forward. Another gloved hand, that of Hitaki Kakashi, is wrapped around the woman's arm at the wrist. The woman is completely chilled by the smile on her face. "Hello there." With his eyes still closed in the shape of an upside-down U, Kakashi says, "I couldn't help but notice that you're denying this young man access to the public library, which should be open to all village residents. May I ask why?" "This one's a troublemaker and I don't want any of his so-called pranks happening anywhere near here." Naruto's gaze flickers between the newcomer and the frugal elderly women who had always denied him access to the library. It was a hurriedly prepared excuse because both adults were aware of the consequences for breaking Sandaime's law. "Well, the boy is probably just here to read, isn't that correct?" Kakashi smiles at Naruto, who nods quickly. "Well, then there shouldn't be any issues," he says to ensure that his point is understood. Kakashi opens his eye and employs a tiny bit of killing intent. "Unless there is some other reason you don't want him here." The old woman frowns and walks away as Kakashi lets go of her wrist. Naruto would meet a pleasant woman in her late 20s tomorrow instead of a frugal old woman, but that is neither here nor there. "Wow. Thanks Cyclops-san." The man looks down and raises an eyebrow at the name, but his eye wrinkles in a way that indicates he is still grinning. Naruto says with a broad smile. The man ruffles the boy's yellow hair and says, "No problem, Naruto-kun, I'll see you around." As the man leaves, Naruto observes and remarks, I'm sure I never told him my name whatever. The boss advised making sure to read for at least an hour today. The clone is reminded of the book he was supposed to read by the writing on the piece of paper the boy takes out of his pocket. Now let's see. It said, The Basics of Sealing by Namikaze Minato. The boy's blue eyes open slowly as he looks around, and then he gets up and rubs his head, saying, Where in the hell am I? When he looks around, he realizes that he is in some kind of sewer, and even though the water is up to his mid-thigh, Naruto feels completely dry. He sees pipes on the walls that glow a light blue, and he sees several pathways. Naruto shrugs, chooses to follow his feet, and moves forward until he reaches a large room with a huge cage, and a piece of paper that has the kanji for seal. On it appears to be holding the gate closed despite the whole "do not get closer" vibe. The boy is curious, much like a child who can't resist tapping on the zoo's glass. Naruto waves the other hand behind him while resting the first on the bars, saying, Hello. He yells into the cage, Who's there? The faint light that exposes the sewer does not, for some reason, reach past the bars. Oh, I'm sorry, I didn't mean to wake you up, whoever you are, Naruto responds in a sheepish tone, with one hand scratching the back of his head. I was just wondering if you could please tell me how to get out of here. He hears a low rumbling sound that gradually gets louder from behind the bars, and he vaguely recognizes it as the sound of someone yawning, magnified 100 times. I'm a little lost. A downward crescent of white emerges from the darkness, gradually expanding to reveal half of a blood-red pupil with a slit pupil. As the pupil looks at him, as if considering something, Naruto unconsciously steps back, just because of the size of the eye, which probably allows him to fit inside with plenty of space to spare. If that were just the size of the creature's eye, Naruto couldn't have imagined the beast that lay behind the cage. The eye closes as slowly as it opened, and after a few moments of silence during which Naruto believes he is not receiving a response, a deep voice echoes behind him. Merely wandering around won't get you out. Just imagine an exit to the outside and let yourself be drawn in order to get out. Naruto felt that the entity behind the cage was attempting to assist him, but he was unable to fully comprehend. Oh, I don't really understand, but thanks, mister. Again, what was your name? When he doesn't hear back, Naruto shrugs and assumes the creature has gone back to sleep. Shutting his eyes, Naruto tries to think of an exit to the outside. Sensing a slight tug, he follows it. With the equivalent of a mental shrug, Naruto gets up and dusts the gravel off his backside. The boy's stomach rumbles, so he decides to go get some ramen for a midday lunch. As he makes his way back to the village, he can't help but wonder that he is next to the river, the same place he had fallen asleep at after learning about the cage buncheon. Who or what was behind that cage, and where was it? As he and his students stand atop the Hokage tower, Sarutobi Hiruzen remarks, This is quite troubling, Jiraiya-kun. The student gives his sensei a look that essentially says, well duh. So it doesn't seem like a bad idea, does it? I think it would be best if I simply took Naruto out of the village with me, but if you really want, I can wait until he starts asking questions before telling him about the Kyuubi. The Sandame sighs and closes his eyes in contemplation. Hiruzen is tired of letting his surrogate grandson leave the village at such a young age, but there is no reason to keep Naruto in the village, since letting him travel with Jiraiya would allow him to see the outside world and allow the Toad Sage to watch over his godson. Chunin, you can take Naruto-kun once he becomes a Chunin, Sarutobi says solemnly. Jiraiya laughs, Geez sensei, you make it sound like I'm taking the brat away from the village forever. I'm an old man, Jiraiya-kun, Sarutobi says, despite all the horrors I have been forced to commit in the name of the village as the Hokage, from turning a blind eye on Danzo and his route to manipulating the innocence of a child, Naruto-kun may be the only respite I have from this world of ours. Sensei, I'm sure if you explain it Naruto will forgive you, the kid's got a big heart. When the day comes I hope he doesn't. Jiraiya-kun, I truly don't, for if he did I would never be able to forgive myself. Hey, buddy, are you still here? It is late in the afternoon, with the sun bathing the horizon in twilight, and Jiraiya is looking down at his godson's curled up form, holding his head in one hand and his stomach in the other. The two are a short distance from the village. Head Hjort, the boy groans and tightens his grip on his head. Gruowl, the boy moans and grips his stomach more tightly, saying, Stomach Hjort. Gruowl with a little drool, the boy says, Need ramen. Sighing, Jiraiya says, Let me guess, at the library, you were about to get something to eat when your clone exploded because you had forgotten to refresh it. You've been lying on the ground for the last 4 hours as a result. Fucking clown. Jiraiya sighs once more, picks up his godson, and slings him over his shoulder. Alright, brat, let's get some food, but not ramen, he says. You're so short because of that stuff. Blasphemy. I'm serious, Brad. Do you want to remain short or do you want to grow up to be as tall as me? Even though ramen is tasty, if you eat it every day, it will eventually grow boring, right? The boy starts to answer but stops, and as Jiraiya returns to the village, there is a brief pause before he says, "All right, TT Ibeo. Curse your damned logic." Haha. Boy. What did I say? The greatest weapon of all shinobi, not just the Hokage, is the mind. Naruto says, "It ain't ramen, but I guess it wasn't too bad, TT Ibeo." His new sensei gives him a deadpan look as he says this. They had gone to a barbecue restaurant, and before the sage even realized what was going on, the yellow-haired boy had inhaled both his and Jiraiya's portions as soon as the meat had finished cooking. Alright, that cage bunshin jutsu was pretty awesome, so Jiraiya says, "I figured out how I'm going to train you, brat." The boy is now staring intently at the toad sage, eager to learn what awesome jutsu he will be learning next, while meekly eating the few bites of food Naruto left behind. Everything you ought to have learned in the academy is being taught to you again by me. We're starting from scratch. Naruto faces plants into the table while Jiraiya hides a smug smile behind his bowl of rice, which should teach the brat to eat his fair share. What on earth is Ero Sennin? I thought you were going to teach me more super awesome jutsu. Naruto says, pulling his face away and placing both hands on the table. The toad sage frowns and says, "That's my line, brat. Remember what I told you about the cage bunshin? While you train, I will be the one who has to spend hours instructing a clone. Believe me, I would much rather beat the living daylights out of you on the pretext of practicing taijutsu than sit down and read the books. But unless you intend to be a figurehead, you will need to know this stuff. If you want to be Hokage, you will simply need to become familiar with the other Jonin sensei's areas of expertise while you are with them." With his eyes slightly squinted, Naruto blinks and slowly returns to his seat. "Oh, that's correct." With a hand on his chin, Naruto remarks, "I almost forgot about that." Jiraiya grunts and puts a cup of water to his lips. "By the way, I finished that book." Naruto ducks beneath the table just in time to avoid the toad sage's mouth spraying out. "Ew, Ero Sennin, that's disgusting." Naruto jokes, sticking his head out from beneath the table. Jiraiya coughs, pounding his chest. "Really?" he shouts, and Naruto just nods. "The entire book?" Naruto nods again, taking out a notepad and pen from his pocket. Jiraiya quickly scribbles something onto a piece of paper and shows it to the whiskered boy. "Alright, brat, what is this?" It looks like a storage seal with about 300 cubic inches of room, a chakra to storage ratio of 14 to 1 inch, 3 subdivisions, and a maximum weight of about 20 pounds, Naruto says, craning his head forward and narrowing his eyes even more. "It has no inherent defenses against heat, moisture, or electricity and is made to hold everyday objects. In my opinion, the seal design is rather poor." Naruto blinks and starts complaining that he wants some ramen, but Jiraiya continues to gape. "That book is more than 200 pages, and you finished it in a day?" Jiraiya lets out a squeak. "Yes. Since it was primarily pictures, it was really simple anyhow. Unlike those books in the academy, it was really simple for me to understand for some reason. I mean, who gives a damn about alliances, trade agreements, and..." Jiraiya finds it difficult to understand how a 12-year-old child completed a book in half a day when it took him 3 weeks, as Naruto starts to rant about how useless the material taught in the academy is. As Naruto continues his tirade, Jiraiya mumbles under his breath, "Like mother like son, I suppose." Many people knew that the Yondaime was a seal master of unmatched skill, but many were unaware that the majority of what he knew was taught to him by his wife, Uzumaki Kushina. The reason Uzushiogakure, the ancestral home of Kushina and Naruto, was destroyed during the Second Shinobi World War was because Uzushio was infamous for producing seal masters with unmatched skill, a trait that was passed down to Kushina and, apparently, to her son, Naruto. "What was that Ero Sennin, I wonder?" "Stop your tirade," Naruto says. "Not a brat. Do you believe you could improve this seal, then?" Jiraiya slams her face against the table and says, "No way." "What? Why not?" Naruto remarks, "Well, to start, my handwriting is awful. It would definitely distort and mess up the seal. Furthermore, I can't use my chakra to burn the seal into the paper because my chakra control isn't good enough. If you would like, I could give you advice on how to make it better." The Yondaime's method was far more efficient than actually writing down seals the way I do. Jiraiya nods. "Since you've already finished the book, I suppose we can just use those clones to practice chakra control instead of having you send one clone to the library for the remainder of the month to finish it." "What? Do you want me to employ the Yondaime technique? It's more difficult than Genjutsu." The Yondaime himself was able to control his chakra to the point where the victim wouldn't even feel the seal being burned into them. The precision and control required to burn the lines was insane. You had to control not only the length and width of the lines but also the depth, as you measured the amount of chakra you flowed through the lines. Yes, and no, you can't just spam 1,000 shadow to do it. I'm limiting you to 5 clones per day. Jiraiya was more concerned that Naruto wouldn't be able to handle the mental feedback than that the boy would unconsciously use the Kyuubi's chakra due to the extreme exhaustion of his chakra. Why can't I just improve my handwriting and do it the old-fashioned way like you do? Groans Naruto indignantly. Brat, believe me, I would train myself if I could, but as you age, your chakra system becomes more rigid. Learning this technique with shadow clones might take you 2 or 3 years, but it would likely take me the rest of my life. The Ondaime, who spent a good 10 years honing this technique, lacked the chakra reserves necessary to simply bombard shadow clones like you. I can't even do the Bunshin, which is apparently the simplest genjutsu. Naruto pouts, crossing his arms and huffing petulantly. How am I going to accomplish something that is even more difficult than that? Jiraiya pays the waiter when he arrives. Be a brat. It takes practice to become perfect. Do you believe that none of the Hokages suddenly became as powerful as they are now? The following day, we find our chibi protagonist and his godfather at another river, this one considerably bigger, with the distant sound of girls giggling. Alright brat, make 5 clones. Making a cross with his fingers, Naruto nods and says, Kage Bunshin no Jutsu. After taking several puffs of smoke, Naruto finds himself gazing at 7 copies of himself. What the hell? I believed I had only produced 5 TT Ibeo. Dude, it's because you gave the jutsu too much chakra, Clone 1 says. Hey, stop calling me a moron, the original says. Clone number 2 deadpans, you kinda are. The other 5 clones all nod in agreement. I never imagined punching myself in the face could feel so good, Naruto says, growling and dispelling 2 of his clones with a punch. Alright. Arrow Senin, how will we practice controlling my chakras? Idly wondering if he should be concerned about his godson's mental health, Jiraiya shakes his head. Alright, Brad, I'll get the others started on a chakra control exercise while you send one of your clones to the library. Together, Naruto and his clones squawk. What? I believed I had finished reading. Huh? Because you've only read 1 book? Yes. No brat, do you wish to become the greatest Hokage in history? That implies that you will need to outperform every other Hokage in every way. And I can assure you that your reign will be the shortest in Kage history if all you are capable of doing is beating the living daylights out of people. The Narutos exchange glances before one of them says, I have to do physical training since I'm the original. He then backs off. This one's coming with me to go back through the academy curriculum, Jiraiya says, stepping up and grabbing another Naruto by the back of his shirt. Before I depart at the end of this month, I'm going to force 4 years worth of content into your mind. The other Narutos flinch as the one being held up starts to sob bloody tears. Jiraiya sighs. This is going to take a while. The final 4 Narutos exchange intent looks with one another, refusing to concede any ground. 0-0 entering the clearing where he had followed the scent of Naruto and Jiraiya. Kakashi blinks. 1 Naruto is performing push-ups beside the river. 3 others have expressions that resemble a combination of constipation and receiving an enema while trying to balance a leaf on their forehead. And the final Naruto is sitting in front of Jiraiya with a book between them and appears to have had his soul sucked out. Are you listening to me, brat? Damn it. What? Indeed, period of warring states. Ramen isn't even safe. Lifespan is only 30 on average before they can even taste the food of the gods. Many people pass away. Concludes with a truce over ramen between Senju Hashirama and Uchiha Madara makes Konoha, where Ichiraku's ramen is found. URG, close enough I guess. Once more, Kakashi blinks. Is the man really instructing the boy himself? Kakashi honestly thought the sage would simply leave Naruto to finish some exercises while he's H. Kakashi walks over to the man, who is looking through binoculars and nursing a small nosebleed, and gives him a deadpan stare with his one eye, interrupting his thoughts as he hears a giggle coming from the bushes a little bit to his side. I shouldn't be surprised. Kakashi says, to be honest, I shouldn't. Don't judge me, the man says, wiping the blood from his nose and putting away his binoculars. Don't you think Kage Bunshin is an amazing jutsu? Well, I guess did Sandaime Sama inform you of my request, then? Since my team will be lacking 1 member, I believe Naruto-kun would get along well with them. Jiraiya frowns. Kakashi, I've made up my mind. When I'm not around, Naruto will be switching between the teams in any case. That squad would be doomed. Jiraiya-sama, what are you saying? Kakashi asks, his voice carrying a faint note of disappointment. Take a moment to consider it. The dead last, the girl the dead last has a thing for, and the brilliant prodigy. I might not have noticed it myself if I hadn't spent the last 3 days with the brat. For Kakashi, The Toad Sage's words are a reminder of his own team, even though Jiraiya is talking about his own team, which includes himself as the last person to die, Orochimaru as the genius prodigy, and Tsunade as the girl he has a crush on. For a brief moment, the memory of when he first received his Sharingan flashes into his mind, but instead of his old team, it is his would-be new team. A dying Naruto. Entrusting Sakura to Sasuke. Tears streaming down the dark-haired boy's cheeks. Kakashi cannot conceal the chill that runs down his spine. Yes, that was also how I felt. Don't stress over it too much. When the brat cycles into your team, you'll get to see him. Nodding, Kakashi says, so a month, huh? That's when I'll have Naruto sign the Toad contract and leave to maintain my spy network. Well, Sandaime-sama informed me that you intended to train Naruto-kun to keep up your spy network after he turns into a Chunin. Do you intend to leave your legacy to the boy? Gazing back at the boy with the yellow hair who had somehow gotten into a fight with his own clones, Kakashi says. With a warm smile on his lips, Jiraiya turns as well. Inherit my legacy, I suppose so. Two figures are standing close to Konoha's gates. One is a young boy, perhaps around 12 or 13. He has 3 whisker marks on both cheeks, and his yellow hair hangs in a shaggy fashion. He has a pair of goggles around his neck, concealed by the jumpsuit's windbreaker, and is dressed in an orange jumpsuit with blue accents. A tiny smile spreads across his face, and his blue eyes seem to be brimming with vitality. The man in question is middle-aged, possibly in his late 40s or early 50s. His spiky white hair is pulled back in a ponytail that reaches below his back, and he has 2 red tear-like marks on his face. The kanji for oil, and 2 tiny horns are displayed on a metal plate on his forehead. He has a huge scroll strapped to his back and is dressed in a dark green gi and a bright red vest. The boy wipes his eyes and says, it's been a hell of a month, Ero Sennin. The man places a hand on the boy's head and says, geez brat, you make it sound like we're never going to see each other again. Make sure to keep up in your studies and I'll send you a scroll every week. The man moves away, and the boy nods. Remember, for the first week you'll be with Kakashi's team. If you don't hurry you'll be late. I know Kakashi won't be there, but you can at least get to know your teammates. Naruto flinches and looks away. Naruto nods and asks, are you still scared to see them again? Don't worry about it brat, let your actions do the talking for once. Show them that just because you don't have a headband it doesn't mean you're not a proud shinobi of Konoha. Jiraiya responds with empathy. Naruto smiles slightly and says, thanks Ero Sennin. K. Go on, get outta here brat, growls Jiraiya. Jiraiya smiles slightly and shakes his head as he watches his godson leap away. After taking a few steps out of the gate, the man disappears in a gust of wind. Sasuke observes that he is becoming increasingly agitated with each passing second. It was meant to be a good day. He was to receive his Jonin sensei after becoming a shinobi at last, although being placed on a team with his biggest fangirl, Haruno Sakura, dulled, killed his joy. Sasuke was still a little pleased because his cell would only have 3 people, him, his fangirl, and their sensei, instead of the usual 4. However, as time passed, that joy soon faded, and the Uchiha are now furious. The Uchiha's thoughts are interrupted by the sound of the door opening when a mop of familiar yellow hair appears. Sasuke's eyes widen in surprise as he turns to vent to the sensei. Uchiha Sasuke and Haruno Sakura? Your sensei says to meet on the roof in 3 minutes? The boy quickly vanishes in a cloud of smoke, leaving Sakura and Sasuke stunned. Sakura frowns as if the boy's name had left her with a bad taste in her mouth. Was that Naruto? She asks. HN. The Uchiha just narrows his eyes and grunts. Sakura blinks as he leaves the room without saying anything more. Uchiha Sasuke appears to be the epitome of stoicism. His lips in a thin line, hands in his pockets, eyes forward on the inside. Though he was deeply torn, Uchiha did feel some sympathy for Naruto. After learning that the boy had failed the test he would never acknowledge it, but the constant challenges from Naruto did push him to levels he never believed he would otherwise achieve. Once more, even though he would never acknowledge it, Sasuke felt as though he had lost a friend when Naruto failed the test. Sasuke shakes his head, purges his mind of the past, and marches obediently up the stairs to meet his Jonin sensei. Soon enough, he would receive his answers. On the academy's rooftop, 4 people are seated: Uzumaki Naruto, who seems to be suffering from a mild headache, and Haruno Sakura, who is dreamily staring at Uchiha Sasuke, who is glaring at the one-eyed man in front of them, are crammed into one bench. Hitaki Kakashi sits on the opposite bench, feigning to read his Icha while wearing a bored expression. Kakashi snaps his book shut and drawls, okay, let's get started. From today on I'm going to be Sasuke-kun and Sakura-chan's Jonin sensei and will be occasionally supervising Naruto-kun. So why don't we all learn a little bit about each oath? But Naruto Baka isn't even a shinobi. He failed his graduation exam, screams Sakura. She had no intention of allowing the Dobi to disrupt her personal Sasuke time. The girl starts to withdraw as the one-eyed man glares at her. Kakashi is aware that one of the things that could really affect Naruto was the fact that he failed his exams. The girl was being a bitch about it. Even though she was correct, however, it appeared that Naruto had not even taken in the girl's words when he turned to face the boy with the yellow hair. Naruto-kun? Are you okay? The boy who was massaging his temples looks up. Huh? Oh yeah, boss is just doing something stupid again. Don't worry about me. Kakashi asks, boss? You're a Kage Bunshin, shadow clone. And Sasuke raises an eyebrow. In response, the boy has yellow hair. Yeah, and boss decided that since Ero Sennin isn't here that it's okay for him to just spam Kage Bunshin. Don't worry about it though, just tell me when it's my turn to introduce myself. Sakura winces as Kakashi pauses to give her another glare. Since we're all going to be working together, why don't we learn a little bit about each other? Why don't you go first, Sakura-chan? He asks with a smile. Okay, well, as I was saying before I was rudely interrupted. Could you go first, sensei? So we know how to do it. With a sigh, Kakashi gives the girl with the pink hair one final glare. Alright, my name is Hitaki Kakashi. I like some things I dislike other tea. Okay, hell no. Kakashi, Sakura, and Sasuke turn to face Naruto, who is now accusing the one-eyed man, saying, you already pulled that shit when I was first going around and meeting the Jonin senseis. You introduce yourself properly or I'm going to leave a present at your house for when you get home tonight. With an eye-catching smile, Kakashi dismisses Naruto, saying, Mama, it's not that important, we'll get to know each other properly eventually. With his arms folded across his chest, Naruto frowns the words, fine, you better watch your back once you get home. Arrow Cyclops. Make Sakura, Kakashi, and even Sasuke perspire. Kakashi makes an offended noise but says nothing in response. Since the lazy perv doesn't want to introduce himself, he says, I'll show you guys how it's done. Ibeo. A few eyebrows went up when he said, my name is Uzumaki Naruto, or at least I'm a shadow clone of him. I like ramen, red bean soup, seals, the color orange, and more recently reading about the history of shinobi. My dislikes are the 3 minutes that it takes for ramen to cook, the people in the village that look at me funny, arrogant jerkasses, and politics. Other than Sakura, who is wearing her headband as a hair ornament, eyebrows vanish. My hobbies are training, gardening and pranking, and my dream isn't a dream because I'll make it a reality. I will be the greatest Hokage ever. That way once the village acknowledges me I'll be able to protect them like the Yondaime did. Thinking that a dead last could not become Hokage, Sakura dismisses Naruto and returns her attention to Sasuke. Uchiha, who has duck hair, blinks for some reason. The Uchiha feels something akin to faith that the yellow-haired character could actually become a great Hokage, rather than the usual response to Naruto's loud-mouthed boast. Although Sasuke will never publicly acknowledge it, it is at that point that he recognizes Naruto as a competitor who must be defeated in order to surpass Itachi because of his mask. Kakashi doesn't react visibly. A tiny smile can be seen beneath the fabric, as the man behind it is pleased that his sensei's son has grown up, even if it is only slightly. Kakashi smiles and remarks, that was a very good introduction, Naruto-kun. Okay, you're next, Ducky. Sasuke frowns and Naruto laughs. My name is Uchiha Sasuke. I don't have anything in particular that I like and I dislike, far too many things to name. I don't have anything I could call a hobby, and for once the Dobi has it right. It wouldn't be right to call it a dream because it's going to become a reality. There is a certain man I will kill and after that I will rebuild my clan to its former glory. Naruto rolls his eyes as Sakura squeals about how awesome her Sasuke-kun is, as he considers how he would have to deprive Sasuke of his revenge kick. Kakashi shakes his head. The squealing fangirl draws the attention of the other roof occupants. The girl blushes when she realizes that everyone is staring at her. She squirms in her seat and turns to face Sasuke. I mean the person I like, she says. My hobbies are. The girl rapes Sasuke with her eyes once more, causing the duck-haired Uchiha to involuntarily move closer to Naruto. The girl with the pink hair gives Sasuke another look and squeals. My dream is. Naruto, Kakashi, and Sasuke all flinch at how frequently the squeal occurs. Sakura blushes in embarrassment as Kakashi deadpans. Okay then, we will be meeting at Training Ground 7 tomorrow at 8 am for a field test. The girl with the pink hair blinks. Wait, a test? I thought we already passed our graduation exams? Kakashi laughs. Naruto grimaces inwardly, and Kakashi does too. You mean the academy final exam? No, that was only to weed out the hopeless cases. The field test determines whether or not you actually become a genin. The silver-haired man gives Naruto a small nod as his eyes enlarge with those words. The man vanishes in a whirl of leaves. The test will be harder than anything you have ever faced. You better not eat tomorrow morning, you'll just throw it up. The yellow-haired boy smirks and says, well, I'ma go too later, Sakura-chan, ducky. He then vanishes in a cloud of smoke. Sakura turns to Sasuke with hopeful eyes after realizing that their meeting is over. Hey Sasuke-kun, want to go on a date? No. Sasuke grunts, gets to his feet, and leaves Sakura alone on the rooftop. The girl sighs, disappointment flashing across her face. Well, it's not like I really thought he would say yes anyhow. Duck, dodge, roll with no opportunity for retaliation. The blows come down relentlessly. The only thing he can do is to stay upright. Spin, turn your shoulder back, raise your right arm to prevent further action. The force of the blow causes his bones to creak, pushing him back but keeping him from falling. Dodge, turn around, a blow to the lower ribs. There is no way to avoid it. Cage bunshin with Kawarimi. Substitution. There are no more cage bunshin. His opponent has returned, and his clone has been instantly destroyed. He couldn't have survived nearly as long as he has if he hadn't taken the time to learn how to operate the Kawarimi without hand seals. His opponent's arms and legs are merely blurs, and his eyes can hardly follow them. His body cannot keep up with his mind's ability to react. He strikes the ground with a devastating kick. Coughing up blood, Naruto feels the warm, metallic-tasting liquid against his chin. Given how hard his sparring partner hits, it wouldn't be shocking if he felt like his chest had just collapsed. Even though his vision is blurry, he can still make out two sets of eyebrows coming toward him. A young voice shouts, my apologies Naruto-kun. Are you alright? Naruto accepts the offered hand while managing a grunt and spitting out some blood. Naruto wipes the blood from his chin and smiles, saying, yeah, bushy brows, you don't have to apologize. Every time you kick the crap out of me, I knew what I signed up for when I came here today. With a smile of approval, Might Guy remarks, I must say Naruto-kun, your youthful improvement is astounding. Only a week ago you couldn't even dodge Lee's first attack, let alone hold him off for 10 minutes. It is hard to believe that you were unable to even graduate from the academy. Naruto shrugs and starts looking for any broken bones. It's not that hard to believe, Super Bushy Brows Sensei. I'm more of a hand-on learner and you can't get more hands-on than this. Unlike the academy, besides it's not that impressive. I'm on the defensive the whole time anyway. Nonsense. You must not diminish your own youthful flames, Naruto-kun. For a student with only a month's worth of proper taijutsu training, the fact that you can keep up with Lee-kun is an achievement to be proud of. Lee-kun, you must fan your flames of youth so that they burn as brightly as Naruto-kun's. Yes, Guy-sensei. To fan my flames of youth I will run 1,000 laps around Konoha. And if I cannot do that I will climb the Hokage monument with only one hand. And if I cannot do that I will. Naruto shakes his head and lets out a sigh. You know, I really think that I do better when I'm just reacting rather than the academy style. It just feels too rigid to me. The bigger spandex says, a taijutsu style is not for everyone, Naruto-kun. There is nothing wrong with simply developing your strength and speed. Now go fan your youthful flames alongside Lee-kun. The yellow-haired boy nods and follows his friend who is wearing spandex. He starts to punch, but stops when a flood of information floods his mind. Hey, Super Bushy Brows Sensei, I'm going to head back a bit early today. Apparently the lazy perv is going to give me and his team some super hard test tomorrow. Understood, Naruto-kun. Do not allow the cool hip attitude of my eternal rival dampen your flames of youth. As he strolls through Konoha's streets, Naruto yawns, the cool night air cooling his blistered hands and feet. He feels a little worn out, but not as worn out as when he trained with Guy and his smaller copy for the first time. Jiraiya had made the decision to let Guy train him. Naruto was initially perplexed and a little depressed, but the Toad Sage quickly clarified that it was only because he lacked the tools necessary to master the sage's taijutsu technique, and that he would eventually acquire it. It was intended that training with Guy and Lee would increase his strength and speed, and it did just that. Naruto quickly consumes several bowls of ramen. After arriving at Ichiraku's, Naruto says goodbye to Tucci and his daughter and heads back to his apartment, taking a bowl with him. He says, I'm home, to his empty apartment. It's a silly habit from when he was younger by repeating it daily. He hoped that someone would eventually reply, however, there was never any. After removing his sandals, he moves to the center of his living room. He sets the still warm bowl of ramen in front of him after removing the plastic wrapper. Although it was a little earlier than usual, he decided to do it now since he wouldn't have time to do it later in the week. When Naruto opens his eyes after sitting cross-legged and experiencing what can only be described as being pulled into oneself, he discovers that he is in the same sewer and that the bowl of ramen is somehow floating on the water in front of him. He picks up the ramen and starts to move. No matter which way he went, He had already discovered that they all led to the same location. He knows how to get here, but he still doesn't know where he is. He soon reaches his destination, the enormous cage that looms over him, ignoring the voice in the back of his mind telling him to flee. He approaches. He takes a few steps back and reaches into the cage to place the bowl of ramen behind it. Hey, I'm back again. I brought you some ramen. It's not much considering how big you were, but the stuff's still pretty good. Hee. The being doesn't respond, not surprisingly, since it hardly ever did. I just wanted to say thanks for just listening to me talk every now and then. It really helped to get some of that stuff off my chest, you know. I might not be able to come back here as much since I'm going to be starting doing some shinobi missions. Apparently I have some super hard tests tomorrow, and I figured I should tell you that I might not be able to come around as much as I used to. The last month has seen the being numerous times Naruto would claim that he considered the person behind the cage to be a friend, even though their feelings might not be reciprocated. Well, I guess I'll see you around. Naruto then disappears from the sewer. The great red eye only slightly opens again after he leaves for a few moments. It gazes at the bowl of noodles in front of it. The water splashes and makes a swishing noise. The ramen has disappeared, along with the noodles and bowl. After a performance, Naruto gets into his pajamas and dries off after setting his alarm clock. He lies down on the bed and covers his head with his sleeping cap. His eyes soon become heavy, and he senses that his consciousness is fading. Good luck on your exam. He grinned at Training Ground 7. It is 9 in the morning. 2 kids are standing at the bridge, and a third is hiding in the tree's shadow. Sakura yells, "Grr, where are those 2? As she paces from his perch on the bridge, Sasuke lets out a grunt. After some time has passed, the 2 hear footsteps approaching. Sakura turns to express her thoughts to Kakashi, but she is unable to speak. Was this really necessary? Asks Kakashi as he crosses the bridge, his hair wilting and his shoulders slumped. Naruto smiles from his perch beneath his tree as Sakura and Sasuke gape. Like Naruto's own jumpsuit, the silver-haired man's hair is painted a sky blue, and his uniform is orange with blue accents. The word pervert is written in vivid pink across his chest. Naruto smiles and says, "Told you I'd get you back. I tried to use henge transformation, but that didn't work, so I tried to wash it out. It didn't work either. Seals are a wonderful thing, aren't they? Please remove it so we can start." When Naruto creates a hand seal, he releases a chakra pulse that causes the man's paint to fade and restores him to his previous splendor. Despite giving him a strange look, his 2 teammates remain silent. Kakashi gives Naruto a slight glare and says, "Okay, follow me." Naruto just smiles back. The team continues into the training area until they reach a clearing where 3 tree stumps are visible. A clock and 2 lunchboxes are placed on one of the stumps after the silver-haired man speaks up and retrieves them from somewhere. Then he reaches into his pockets and takes out 2 silver bells. "You have until noon to take these bells from me. Whoever doesn't get a bell gets sent back to the academy for remedial training." Sakura remarks, "But Kakashi-sensei, there are only 2 bells." Sakura and Sasuke both observe that there isn't a third bell. Kakashi beams. "Well then, I guess that one of you are going to get sent back to the academy." The eyes of the 3 kids enlarge. "I intend to purchase one of those bells. I will not be slowed down by these losers. Naruto doesn't deserve to be on my team if he is incapable of getting a bell. I must purchase one of those bells. If I can get one, we'll be together because I'm positive Sasuke-kun will get one and Naruto-baka won't. If I get both bells and give Sasuke-kun one, I wager kya. One of those bells is what I need. This is my opportunity to prove to Ero Sennin that his month-long instruction of me was worthwhile. To prove to him that I'm more than a useless dropout. He spent a month with me, and I won't let it be in vain. I'm going to get a bell." 3 stomachs growl, and Kakashi laughs at the almost maniacal expressions on the genins' faces. And also, whoever fails to get a bell will be tied to this stump and be forced to watch as the other 2 eat these bentos. Well, I can at least read something if nothing else. The silver-haired man hooks the bells to his waist and says, "On your mark." All 3 of them tensed, their muscles coiling as they said, "Get set. Go." Standing in the center of the forest clearing, Kakashi remarks, "Well, they're well hidden, if nothing else." He looks off to the side. Sasuke-kun is hiding in the bushes about 40 meters to my left, while Sakura-chan is hiding in the trees and Naruto-kun about 50 meters to my right. "Give me one of those bells, Arrow Cyclops." While he effortlessly avoids Naruto's blows, Kakashi muses, "I feel like I should be surprised, but I'm really not." The boy's speed and agility had undoubtedly increased, but Kakashi is an adult and a Konoha elite shinobi, whereas Naruto is only a child and officially a civilian. With a simple flick of his arm, Kakashi easily throws the boy back after catching an overhead kick by the ankle. Kakashi reaches for his shuriken pouch as the boy touches down. Naruto pauses and stiffens. "Well, At least he is aware that he shouldn't attack an enemy unarmed. However, Kakashi doesn't brandish a weapon. Instead, he presents his beloved Icha Icha, the greatest work of literature ever written and a gift to all of humanity. With a finger pointing at the little orange book, Naruto shouts, "Ah, that book. Oh, you know about it?" Kakashi asks, grinning. "Are you a fan as well?" You wouldn't guess from his tone that he was asking a 12-year-old boy if he read porn. Read that smut ttebeo. Hell no, not only is it porn but the plot is horrible. Kakashi lets out a sound of offense. He is aware that some people despise his beloved because they were too young to enjoy the smut, but does he also think that the plot is flawed? That was simply unacceptable. Hey now, I understand if you're too young to appreciate fine literature, but that's no reason to insult it. Are you kidding me? The only thing the main character does is sleep with every woman he comes across. There's like no character development? And how would you know that? His face is the first place where the red begins to seep down his neck. He would have been a very nice tomato if his hair had been red. He opens and closes his mouth, but no sound escapes. Anger, however, soon replaces the embarrassment. Shut up ttebeo. Give me one of those damned bells. With his fist cocked back, Naruto charges forward. When he delivers the punch, Kakashi vanishes. Naruto feels as though a force beyond his understanding is preventing him from moving, regardless of how much he wants to. This is for insulting fine literature. Konohamaru Hiden Taijutsu Ogi. Senin Garashi. An intriguing Kage Bunshin fact: the excess chakra used in the creation and the dispersal of chakra after the destruction of the Bunshin are the causes of the smoke that both indicates the appearance and disappearance of one. The smoke emitted during the Kage Bunshin's destruction is caused by the chakra that remains in the clone after it has been dispersed, which happens when the clone runs out of chakra to keep its shape. However, the clone could serve as a makeshift smokescreen if enough chakra were infused into it. The clone is launched into the air by Kakashi's attack, but his vision is obscured by the enormous amount of smoke that is released as the clone explodes in front of him. There are several popping noises and the sound of something coming out of the water. With his senses sharpened, Kakashi can hardly take a blow to the ribs with a quick kick. His assailant scatters into the smoke, further obscuring his vision. However, it only obstructs his vision. He hears several footsteps approaching him, and the copy nin charges his assailants with vigor, his powerful strength unabated by the smoke around him. Shinobi Fighting Lesson Number 1, Taijutsu. One of his attackers is dispersed by a punch, and another by a kick. Kakashi dodges a kick, catches the boy by the ankle, and flings him into another of his clones, which both pop. He spins his leg, lashes out, knocks another clone into another, catches it in the chest, and the two vanish into smoke. Kakashi's left ribs are buried by a fist, but he pushes through the agony and pops them by elbowing his assailant in the face. Kakashi thinks, not bad, but what are you going to do now? His ribs are a little sore despite his diminutive size. The boy was quite powerful. He nearly misses it because he can't see. He couldn't have reacted quickly enough if he had been another Jonin. However, he was the only remaining member of Team Minato and a Yondaime student, Hitaki fucking Kakashi. Therefore, Kakashi's eyes enlarge and he immediately lashes out with a punch. When a faint chime sounds from his waist, Kakashi jumps into the air to escape the smoke as soon as he feels his fist connect. Not even his approach was audible to me. The force of the copy nin's punch propels the boy out of the smoke. He flips, regains his balance, and uses his hands to form a cross. After saying, Kage Bunshin no Jutsu, an orange line appears. Each boy snatches the one beside him. Henge. A line of kids with yellow hair now stands, each holding a metal shuriken that is half as large as their. Kakashi becomes acutely aware of his position in midair and his inability to dodge. Kakashi uses his chakra to reach for a kawarimi as the shuriken fly. His footing solidified after he prayed to the holy log. He is extremely uneasy, though, because of the mysterious writing on the ground that he just so happened to land in the middle of. 4 lines branch out at equal intervals around the circle's circumference, encircling a spiral. The seal illuminates and follows the lines of Shisho Fuin model, Baindo, 4-symbol seal model, bind, to 4 identical yellow-haired boys standing a considerable distance away, with the writing on the seal extending to each of their locations. Kakashi believes he is immobile. He feels as if his muscles are just not reacting, rather than being restrained by a physical force. Running up from behind the Jonin, Naruto yells, "Give me one of those damned bells ttebeo," as his hands form a tiger seal. Konohamaru Hiden Taijutsu Ogi. Senin Garashi. Naruto smiles as he feels his blow land as the silver-haired man's eye protrudes from his head. Time appears to stop, but as the man vanishes in a puff of smoke, it begins again. Damn it, I was sure I had him. Kakashi sighs and ducks behind a tree, saying, "That was too close." Before his own method was used against him, He had been able to use it to create a Kage Bunshin and Kawarimi at the last second. Although he is physically free, Kakashi is certain that the memory of someone sticking their fingers up his butt will resurface in his nightmares. Well timed to test Sakura-chan, a disappointed Kakashi remarks, "Shinobi fighting lesson number 2, Genjutsu," as he observes the defeated form of the Academy's most talented Kunoichi. He had hidden behind her and used basic Genjutsu on her. Not even a D rank, she had gone on to faint and almost burst his eardrums. Well, he thinks, to the next. Sasuke stands in front of Kakashi and declares, "I'm not like those losers." The man in silver laughs. "That remains to be seen. You might not have been able to see it since you were hiding in the bushes, but Naruto-kun was able to touch a bell. Can you do the same?" The man easily avoids the 3 shuriken thrown at him by the raven-haired boy. A tripwire was cut when one of the shuriken flew low in order to dodge a barrage of blades that plunged deeply into a nearby tree. Kakashi leaps back once more. Sasuke vanishes in a flash of speed as the silver-haired man slides back. Emerging just behind him, the Uchiha kicks Kakashi's head while spinning. "He's faster than Naruto-kun, but weaker as well," the man says, effortlessly catching the boy's heel on the metal plate of his glove. The raven-haired boy twists his body and throws a punch at Kakashi, who catches it with his other hand after he grabs Sasuke's ankle with his other. Kakashi simply blocks Sasuke's kick between his forearms as he twists his body further and throws it at his head. Kakashi leaps back to put more distance between them as the boy smirks and tries to grab at the bells but is immediately flung back. With a mocking tone, Kakashi says, Had Naruto-kun not given me a decent warm-up, you might have been able to touch the bells all well." With a frown, the Uchiha swiftly goes through 3 hand seals. Kaden. Gukakyu, fire release, great fireball technique. Seeing his jutsu work, Sasuke grins. The man never stated that they had to be in good shape, even though he had stated that they needed to get a bell, but when the smoke subsides, only scorched earth remains. He's gone. Sasuke spins about. In the air, only clouds and blue eyes are visible. On the side, no. Where might he be? His eyes enlarge as a hand leaps from the floor, grabs his ankle, and drags him into the ground. Below Doden. Shinju Zanshu no Jutsu, Earth style. Double suicide. Kakashi crouches in front of Sasuke, who can only glare at him as only his head and neck protrude above the floor. Shinobi fighting lesson number 3, Ninjutsu. Well, you're already way farther with this than the others. Before the glaring Uchiha, who is attempting to set the man on fire with his glare, the man's eye smiles. Unfortunately, it would take him a few more years to be able to do that. The boy's impotent rage is only heightened when a hand pats his head. Better luck next time. In a clearing in the training ground, a single bell rests on the ground beside a tree. 3 identical yellow-haired boys stand a few feet away. One of them says to the other, "So, you should go pick it up." A furious, "Hey, why don't you go pick it up?" he responds. The third boy says, "Because it's obviously trapped, dumbass." The trio resumes their gaze on the bell. With his arms folded across his chest, one of the boys stepped back and said, "Well, one of you two should go pick it up." He gets a glare from the other two. "What? Why do we have to do it?" "Because I'm the original. If it's trapped, then you guys will just get popped, but if I get caught in it, we're in serious trouble." As they accept their fate, the 2 Bunshin complain after a short while. One is dangling upside down by its ankle, and the other is making a fruitless attempt to climb out of the hole it fell into. With a contented grin, Naruto nods and walks across the field to retrieve his prize, but halfway there, he pauses and frowns. "Come out, Arrow Cyclops, I know you're there." The silver-haired man emerges from behind the tree, nearly in line, his hands in his pockets and the 2 bells fastened to his waist jiggling. "Not bad, I honestly thought I had you there. How did you notice?" The bell on the ground appears briefly before fading away, indicating that it is a false impression. Naruto has a broad smile on his face. "I didn't." After blinking, Kakashi laughs, "Clever boy, what are you going to do now? You have 10 minutes to get a bell and Sasuke-kun and Sakura-chan are preoccupied at the moment." Naruto frowns and removes his heavy orange jacket, saying, "I didn't want to do this because this was supposed to be a training exercise. But I really do need one of those bells." The yellow-haired boy vanishes in a flash of speed as the article of clothing falls to the ground with a crash. Kakashi instinctively raises his arms, but he just about stops Naruto's first blow. Then there are kicks and punches, and Kakashi feels like he's being pushed back. "Not bad, Naruto-kun, but not good enough." He quickly returns the blows without his weighted jacket. Naruto's speed easily doubles as the boy avoids the blows and catches the man by the arm, attempting to throw him but failing. Kakashi throws Naruto back by reversing the grab and anchoring himself to the ground. Naruto rapidly gets back on track and creates what is fast becoming his go-to hand seal. Taiju Kage Bunshin no Jutsu, Mass Shadow Clone Technique. Kakashi is surrounded by Bunshin, but the masked man merely grunts, "Come now Naruto-kun, the thing again?" From somewhere in the army of clones, a voice yells, "If brute force doesn't work, you're not using enough of it, Ibeo." The silver-haired man is attacked by the clones, and sometimes brute force isn't enough, he exclaims before starting to destroy the clone army. Even though they were more numerous and faster, Kakashi was still unabated. With no space to move, Kakashi is forced to defend himself after 3 clones attack him. His leg blocks a punch, and his hands grab the ankle of 2 kicks. Like Sasuke, the 2 clones whose kicks Kakashi had blocked spin around and throw 2 punches at his head from different directions. The clone whose punch Kakashi had blocked now has his leg in a bear hug, and he notices the faint glow of chakra at the clone's feet. Kakashi tries to leap back, but his leg gets stuck. The clones grab each other's hands and pound him into the ground as he leans back, barely avoiding the blows. The clones leap in an attempt to paralyze his arms, but Kakashi disperses one with a punch and tries to throw the other, but it adheres firmly to his arm. The other clones piled on top of the copy nin, occupying his arm and leg as one of them slapped a tag onto the man's chest. Kakashi overwhelms the clones and explodes out of the heap, sending the others flying back while 4 of them cling to his arms and legs. Chance. Kakashi cranes his neck to observe what he is certain is the original Naruto in the direction of the voice. His arms are crossed, palms out, and he is crouching because there isn't any green spandex. Kakashi doesn't notice it for a moment, but when he does, his eyes enlarge. Kaimon. Gate of opening. The boy charged forward even more quickly than before, and Kakashi loses sight of his progress because he didn't anticipate how much faster he would get. His head snaps up and he's launched into the air by a kick. He is momentarily stunned and hovers in midair when Naruto smirks and emerges in front of him. Ura Kage Buyo, reverse shadow of the dancing leaf. The boy brings both arms back after making a cross with his fingers. Naruto Uzumaki 2000 combo, or Uzumaki Naruto Nissen Renden. Kakashi attempts to form chakra for a Kawarimi, but it is simply drawn towards the seal on his chest and dispersed. Beginning with the original, they all beat the silver-haired man until he falls to the ground with a thunderous crash, followed shortly after by the original Naruto, and the 1,000 clones in the air vanish. Hundreds of clones form behind the boy, all with both arms cocked back. As the dust clears and Kakashi walks out, roughed up but undamaged, the tag on his chest fluttering in the wind behind him, Naruto quickly goes pale. "Hey, let's see you get up." After that, Naruto pants, his left on one knee and his other clenched, his arms and legs feeling like jelly. He stands in front of the boy and says, "Not bad, but not quite good enough if you want to take someone of my level down." Before he collapses forward, unable to remain conscious, Naruto pants, wasn't trying to, the alarm goes off, and a gleaming silver bell appears in Naruto's hand. With an eye that curves like an upside-down U and a genuinely proud smile visible beneath his mask, Kakashi picks up the bell from Naruto's hand and reattaches it to his waist before lifting the boy up and carrying him on his back as he starts to walk back towards the stumps in the center of the training ground. "Well done, Naruto-kun. So, what will become of us?" The 4 were sitting at the logs, with Sakura sitting Caesar in front of the masked man and Kakashi leaning against one of the logs, reading his Icha. Naruto was sleeping soundly nearby, and Sasuke was staring at the boy with a strange look on his face. Sakura asks fearfully, "I had originally planned to give them this test after they failed, but I suppose this works just as well," Kakashi says, casting a dismissive glance at the girl before turning back to his book. Naruto wakes up as the moment of truth arrives, and he pushes himself up with tremendous effort. "UHG, what happened?" Kakashi pulls a black cloth Konoha forehead protector out of his pouch and throws it to Naruto, saying, "Congratulations, Naruto-kun, you made it through." The boy leaps up and grabs the headband. "What, really? Ibeo, I'm a shinobi at last." As if he wasn't just unconscious and drooling into the ground, he yells while leaping up and down. "As I'm sure you can figure out, Sasuke-kun and Sakura-chan failed and will be sent back to the academy for remedial training." Kakashi stops Naruto in his tracks and says, "I wouldn't be celebrating just yet." Both of those genin flinch as if they were physically struck. "But I am willing to give the both of you another chance, if Naruto-kun gives back his headband." The children's breath caught. "I'll test all 3 of you again if he returns the headband, and I'll pass all 3 of you if you get both bells. However, Naruto-kun will not be allowed to become a shinobi, and Sasuke-kun and Sakura-chan will be sent back to the academy for remedial training if you are unable to do so." His eyes are shadowed by his spiky hair as he clenches his hand and stares at the black cloth and metal plate. unable to see Sakura's beseeching expression or Sasuke's conflicted expression. He turns around and says, "I'll give you a few minutes to think about it." However, he stops when he feels something hit his back and fall to the ground. He looks down and notices the headband he gave Naruto, and he turns to face the boy. "Are you sure about this, Naruto-kun? You will never be able to become Hokage if you fail. These failures will be your bet on your dream." He says, "I won't abandon my comrades just because we might fail." Fire burns in his blue eyes. Kakashi nods, matching Naruto's scowl. "Excellent on my end. No, me and Sakura-san failed because we got complacent and didn't prepare this past month like you did," Naruto says, his eyes widening as Sasuke calmly gets up and picks up the fallen headband. "I witnessed what you did after your altercation with Kakashi-sensei. Despite your best efforts to conceal it, you shouldn't even be standing because your muscles are torn. You wouldn't be much more than deadweight if we fought Kakashi-sensei again." The headband is practically thrust into Naruto's arms as he approaches, saying, "I'm not letting you put your future on the line just to give me a second chance." Sakura gets to her feet as well, finally finding her voice. "That's right. What you did was incredible, and I can't even begin to imagine what you went through this past month to be able to do that," she says, her eyes welling with unshed tears. "Although I sincerely appreciate your desire to give Sasuke-kun and I another chance, if we are unsuccessful, it will be the end for you. You can't, but I can always try again next year if we don't succeed." "We won't fail then. I got one of the bells myself," yells Naruto, clenching his fists. "If we all cooperate, I'm sure." "Damn it, Dobi!" roars Sasuke, lunging at Naruto, grabbing the boy by his shirt and bringing him close. Naruto and Sakura's eyes widen, seeing the usually calm Uchiha lose his composure. "We would still fail. Even though you're currently superior to the rest of us, it still took everything you had to get one of the bells. As much as I hate to say it, even if we collaborated, we wouldn't be able to compete with how exhausted you are right now. Will you accept this voluntarily now, or will I have to force it upon you?" The atmosphere is so tense that you could cut it with a knife as Naruto glares back at Sasuke, declaring with conviction, "I won't leave my comrades behind." Kakashi does just that as he starts to clap slowly, drawing 3 heads to him as his visible eye curves into an upside-down U. "Well, it seems like you all can't agree, so let me do it for you," he says. "Congratulations, you've passed." The 3 genin blink once twice. Sakura's one word encapsulates their thoughts quite effectively. "What?" The silver-haired man gestures for them to follow him. Sasuke puts an arm under Naruto's arm as he stumbles after releasing Naruto. "I can walk on my own, Teme. HN." After guiding them to the stone directly behind the stumps, Kakashi steps behind it and puts a hand on it, saying, "Observe this. This stone is engraved with many names." "The Konoha Memorial Stone," Naruto says solemnly. "That's right." Kakashi nods. "The names of many shinobi who have lost their lives while performing their duties are engraved on this stone. These shinobi sacrificed their lives to accomplish missions that were extremely important to Konoha. This is the name of my best friend. Missions are the lifeblood of the shinobi villages in the shinobi world. To ensure that we finish these missions, we adhere to extremely stringent guidelines. It should go without saying that a shinobi must be able to see beneath the surface, but in the shinobi world, people who violate the laws and norms we live by are viewed as trash. That may be true, but those who abandon their comrades are lower than trash." Kakashi paces around Naruto, Sasuke, and Sakura from behind the stone to behind, making sure to look at each of his prospective students. That was the goal of the bell test, which the Yondaime and Sandaime both used. To instruct genin to set aside their disagreements and cooperate for the benefit of the group. To impart the lesson that the whole is more significant than the individual. That is precisely why a Jonin, a Konoha elite shinobi, is pitted against 3 genin who have just graduated from the academy. Kakashi stops in front of the genin and gives him an eye smile, which causes Naruto to laugh sheepishly and scratch his cheek. This is done in order to make the genin cooperate against what are said to be insurmountable odds. The training is over now. Tomorrow is when Team 7 will start working. Wow, I didn't expect the brat to actually get a bell guide did work with the kids' taijutsu. Have faith in your pupil. Jiraiya-kun. Naruto-kun could do amazing things if he would only put his mind to it. Jiraiya smiles and feels a growing sense of pride in his chest as he watches the bell test conclude in the Hokage office through his sensei's crystal ball. It was satisfying to see Naruto receive recognition for his hard work, which he had been putting in every day for the past month. "Will you be heading out now, Jiraiya-kun?" Jiraiya's unexpected arrival and request to watch Naruto's test together was unexpected, but at the very least, it was a fun experience. He pulls a scroll from his vest and unfolds it on the table, saying, "Not yet, just one last thing." The Toad Sage's voice is full of pride as he talks about his godson. While it was nice getting to watch the brat, That's not quite why I came back. I knew he could pass all on his own anyway. Then what is it? I found this a little ways out of the road. With a puff of smoke, he opens the scroll and releases its contents after channeling a tiny amount of chakra into it. There is a severed hand on the parchment, shriveled up as if the moisture had been sucked out of it. Pitch black chakra that gradually fades is tattooed onto the skin in the form of a chain. Both men are aware of it. The skin was scorched by the tattoo's unadulterated hate and malice. Sarutobi's eyes narrow. That's the third one we've found this year. Yeah, even fewer than we found last year, but it's the biggest one yet. The contents of the seal are returned to their storage after another chakra application. Jiraiya rolls it back up and walks away. I'll drop this off before I leave. Got to make sure to tell Ibiki. We found another piece of Mizuki. Sitting on one of the stumps in the middle of Training Ground 7, Naruto remarks, "This color band doesn't really work with the rest of my clothes." While examining the black fabric that is attached to his Konoha headband, he and his team are waiting for their sensei on the following day. Sakura gazed at Sasuke as he grunted and leaned on the stump next to Naruto's HN. "So what color should I change it to? Red, yellow, orange?" Sasuke gives Naruto a blank stare. Of those choices, one of them wouldn't make you look like a clown, and even that's depending on the shade. "Which one? Yellow, orange? It's orange, isn't it, TT Ibeo?" Although he is Uchiha, who do not palm their faces, he would do so, idiot. The boy with the raven hair thinks to himself, it's strange that Naruto doesn't seem as annoying as he did in the academy. The yellow-haired boy acted the same way for the most part, but he was less annoyed than he had been at the time. "So what have you been doing this past month?" Sasuke blinks briefly at the question and pauses to think of a response. "Training you." "Yeah, I was training too, except a couple of days." Naruto blushes a little and a chill goes up his spine. "Freakin' arrow Senin." Sasuke's brow goes up. "Senin? How do you know a sage?" Naruto crosses his arms over his chest and furrows his lips. "Yeah, apparently this guy's helping me because he knew my parents, but he's a massive perv. Did you know that he wrote that super smutty book that Arrow Cyclops always reads?" "I don't see what you have against the book. Who cares if it has smut as long as the plot and characters are decent?" When Kakashi emerges behind Sasuke in a puff of smoke and envelops him in an embrace, his eyes enlarge. "Finally someone who understands," the man exclaims, his eyes welling with tears. It had been so long since anyone had realized how great Jiraiya-sama's books were. "Get off me." The four of them sit down to talk about their plans for the day. A few minutes after Naruto and Sakura successfully freed Sasuke from Kakashi's embrace, Sasuke makes sure Naruto is between him and the masked shinobi. Normally, after becoming Genin, the team does D-rank missions to familiarize themselves with the village and then move on to C ranks when the Jonin sensei feels they are prepared, but I get the feeling that if I did that, then Naruto-kun is just going to make a cage bunshin and go goof off. The boy nods without any remorse. If he can have a clone do something dull for him, why should he? And Sasuke-kun would rather train HN and Sakura-chan, the man rambles, glancing at the team's kunoichi. She waves her hands in front of her and declares, "I'm fine with whatever Sasuke-kun wants to do." Kakashi gives a nod. "Okay, I think today we'll do some training exercises and maybe do some missions in the afternoon if you all still have energy." "Naruto-kun, do you know how to do tree walking?" "Yeah, Arrow Senin taught me it after I was able to do the leaf balancing." "Do you have anything to do while I teach Sasuke-kun and Sakura-chan, or would you like me to give you a scroll with a jutsu?" "Really? Thanks, Arrow-sensei." He pulls a scroll from his pouch and thinks, well, at least it's a step up from Arrow Cyclops. He is sweating. This is an A-rank ninjutsu created by the Sandaime himself. It's based off the Cage Bunshin, so you shouldn't have too much trouble with it. The scroll instantly vanishes from his grasp as Naruto dashes off, leaping with delight. "Just you watch, Arrow-sensei, I'll have this jutsu mastered in no." Before his face collapses, "Naruto-kun, you okay?" A shaky thumbs up is managed by the boy. "My muscle control might be a bit messed up from using the gates yesterday, TT Ibeo." Kakashi gives a nod. "Okay, Sasuke-kun. Sakura-chan, come with me and we'll get started on the tree walking exercise." Naruto struggles to roll onto his back as the three leave. He unfolds the scroll in front of him and starts reading. Kakashi stands in front of Sakura and Sasuke and states, "The basic idea of this exercise is simple." He makes a ram seal and approaches the tree, saying, "You want to channel chakra to your feet to stick to the tree. Like this." Placing one leg on it, he keeps climbing the tree until he is at least 5 meters above them. "Too much, the bark will shatter. Too little and you'll slip." "What's the point of this training, Kakashi-sensei?" she asked, although she could understand the value of being able to walk on vertical surfaces. His face is flat as he drawls. First it teaches you chakra control, to bring out the proper amount to the proper area. That's what this exercise is supposed to teach you. The amount needed to stick to the tree is small, but the feet are the hardest part of the body to channel chakra to. Theoretically, if you were able to master this, you could master any jutsu. Second is to develop the stamina needed to control chakra properly. The more complex a jutsu, the more control you need in order to use it to its maximum potential. Take for example Naruto-kun's Kage Bunshin. You see the smoke that forms when they are created? That's excess chakra that he's wasting because he doesn't have the control to use the exact amount of chakra needed to create a clone. This applies to all jutsu in general and not just the Kage Bunshin. Hand seals are basically means of assisting shinobi in shaping their chakra. Theoretically, with perfect chakra control, or as one is familiar enough with it, they could use that jutsu with no hand seals or preparation time. There are exceptions, of course. Some jutsu require pure chakra control to form, and others you simply dump as much chakra into the jutsu as you can, but those jutsu are few in number and their secrets are closely guarded by their creators. 2 kunai impale the ground in front of the genin, saying, "You won't learn anything by me just talking all day. The best way to learn is by experiencing it for yourself. Use these kunai to mark how high you make it up the tree, then use that mark as your goal and try to surpass it. You probably won't be good enough to just walk up the tree first, so take a running start." Leaping from the tree, he pulls out his icha and starts reading. Sasuke starts running and climbs 4 meters up the tree. Before the bark bursts beneath his feet, he flips, landing in a crouch as the kunai makes a cut just above the blasted bark. Hey, this is pretty easy. Sakura is sitting on a branch around 10 meters above the ground, her legs supporting the branch, when Sasuke and Kakashi both look up. Kakashi looks at Sasuke and says, "Very impressive, Sakura-chan." He mockingly drawls, "Perhaps the Uchiha weren't so elite after all." With a growl, the boy with the raven hair turns back to his tree. "Kakashi-sensei, damn you. Sasuke-kun despises me now." Sakura glares at the one-eyed man and muses. He returns to his reading with a shrug. Panting, a little breathless, she descends the tree. "What should I do now, Kakashi-sensei?" Then Kakashi looks at her from behind his book. "While you have exceptional chakra control, your stamina is fairly low and your chakra pool rather small. Try to go up and down the tree 10 times to improve them. If you can't, then rest and try again." She returns to her tree after nodding with a slash on the tree only centimeters above the previous one. Kakashi witnesses Sasuke return to the ground. After hearing another loud crack, he looks over and sees Naruto still on the ground, slowly removing hand seals. With a light breeze and a moderate temperature, the clouds above soften the sun's intense rays. Everything is pleasant and tranquil. "Oh, Aiko-chan, you naughty girl, hoo 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 hoo." A little boy with brown hair and an enormous scarf yells, "Train me," as he runs through the streets of Konoha after a yellow-haired boy wearing an orange outfit. "Damn it, TT Ibeo, I'm only a genin. Why don't you just go ask that elite tutor of yours?" The kid responds he wasn't sure if he could hold those teachers accountable for not wanting to teach him in the past if this was how he behaved in the academy. The day got off to a great start. The boss had made a clone after waking up in order to go register his shinobi ID and play a practical joke on Hokage Gigi. Following Ero Sennin's explanation of his own female teammate, he came up with a small, harmless joke. Naruto could tell that the old man would likely like it. He tries to conceal that book in his desk, but what about it? Sarutobi Hiruzen, the Sandaime of Konohamaru and the god of shinobi, is insane in his office. That white-hot rage that burns inside him is best described as furious. It had been a positive beginning to the day to deal with the enormous smile of paperwork that seemed to have grown overnight. He had created some Kage Bunshin by getting in early shortly after his surrogate grandson arrived with his shinobi identification when his real grandson, Konohamaru, loudly declared that he would defeat his grandfather and become Hokage. The boy was about to leave after a brief embrace. Then he had stumbled over his scarf and fallen face first to the ground. He blamed Naruto right away after he got up, and Naruto, being Naruto, loudly objected, slapping the brat over the head and declaring that he would be the next Hokage. Then Naruto left, saying something like, "Boss said to go to the library," and Konohamaru, for some reason, promptly followed. However, a cloud of smoke engulfed Hiruzen as soon as Naruto left the Hokage tower, putting him in his current situation. His secretary peers in as the door creaks open. Her eyes widen as she sees the person behind the desk. Hokage-sama, you have a 10 o'clock appointment." "Fo Hokage-sama," she yells. A stunning young woman with long, dark brown hair and 2 pigtails sits at the desk. Her rather large breasts strain against the male robes, and the Hokage robes hang loosely on her voluptuous figure. The conical Hokage hat on the desk in front of her contrasts with her pale, Immaculate skin, her eyes are obscured by the two bangs that frame her face. Under the outer corners of her eyes are two vertical lines. Unique facial features that are unique to one person in Konoha. Her fists were on the desk, clearly shaking with anger. Somehow the brat had used his Oiroku no Jutsu on him. Yes, the clone believes that to be appreciation, not rage, which only men could comprehend, but admiration for a good joke. But his pursuer is able to catch up because of his brief moment of distraction. The clone yells at the shorter boy, "Stop following me. I need to go to the library so I can become the best Hokage ever." Instead, how come the brat couldn't just take a hint? No way. For this past month Gramps has been going on and on about how you're going to be an awesome Hokage when you're old enough to inherit the title, but I need to become Hokage first, so you're going to teach me. The kid screams as he points the finger at the clone, who would henceforth be called Naruto, frowned. Why would a brat like you want to become Hokage? You wouldn't even be able to protect yourself, let alone the village. I need to become Hokage so that people will start seeing me as me instead of the honorable grandson of the Sandame. I couldn't care less about protecting the idiots in the village. Naruto strikes the boy over the head once more as his eyes light up with rage. Brat, that's not the right reason to want to become Hokage. A reply from Konohamaru is, yeah, well what is it then? Naruto's eyes narrow and his face takes on a more neutral look. Konohamaru moves uneasily. Alright brat, follow me. Ram rat bird a boar tiger. His chakra forms and shapes, but it never lets go, rather, it dissipates into the air innocuously. Ram rat bird a boar tiger. He fumbles with the hand seals with his fingers. Normally, he would immediately begin practicing the jutsu, but the scroll stated that the jutsu would be less effective if he was unable to perform the hand seals quickly enough. Ram rat bird a boar tiger. During the month he spent training, he had practiced a lot of things with arrow senin, but they had not practiced hand seals, most likely because he could do it with ease on his own. Ram rat bird a boar tiger. This is really awful. When arrow senin was not in the village, he could only make 3 clones a day for non-combat purposes. Even though he would prefer to have a clone do this for him, Naruto feared that the arrow senin would discover that he had accidentally overreached himself. Always, the arrow senin discovered. Ram rat bird a boar tiger. His torn muscles are gradually growing back as he moves his legs a little and flinches at the tiny pain. After learning to operate the gates, he was only able to open 2. He had only ever used them once, and that was to escape Enko following a heated argument over a crucial issue. The fact that arrow senin had later bound him and had the women read from his most recent book while teaching him about the bird and the bees didn't help either. Ram rat bird a boar tiger. To relax, he slows his breathing and closes his eyes. His face loses heat, and the unpleasant touch memories vanish. Ram rat bird a boar tiger. Duck, hold on duck. He addresses the duck-haired boy who is looking down at him strangely and asks, "What do you want, Sasuke?" A flush appears on the Uchiha's cheeks as he tilts his head to the side. You know how to do the tree climbing exercise, right? He moves his hands to under his head and stretches from his ground position. After practicing the hand seals for so long, they were a little sore. That's right. An uncomfortable, quiet Sasuke's expression could now be characterized as someone who has tasted something incredibly repulsive that they are aware they must consume. Could you give me some tips? Sure. He gives an owlish blink. Huh. I said sure. What? Did you expect me to make fun of you or something? Actually yeah. Naruto leaps to his feet and shrugs. Well, I probably wouldn't have been able to get it myself if it wasn't for arrow senin helping me, so it would be hypocritical for me to make fun of you for having trouble. The two approach the tree, which has several visible slash marks, the tallest of which is 7 meters above the ground. Okay, show me what you're doing. With a nod, Sasuke directs his chakra to his feet perfectly adhere to and peel off the tree. As he rushes forward, he marks his progress just above the final cut before his footing gives out just under 7 meters and he falls. He crouches down beside Naruto. I'm not sure what to say. You're doing much better than I did at first, Ibeo. Naruto looks up at Sasuke's development with his arms folded. But, it looks like you're thinking about something else while you're doing this. Sasuke looks away and says, TCH, he clearly doesn't want to share whatever it is. I won't ask, but it would be better if you cleared your mind. Chakra uses physical and spiritual energy, so if your emotions are restless your control won't be as good. The ram seals as he nods and gets to his feet. He surpasses his previous mark by a full meter. This time he has a smile on his face. When he falls, Naruto nods and starts to walk away, but he pauses. Hey Sasuke, you don't have to tell me if you don't want. but if you ever need someone to talk to, I'll be there. Sasuke laughs. Why would you care? With his pinging teeth, he turns to the boy with the raven hair and strikes the nice guy pose. Because I want to be Hokage. Konohamaru exclaims, "You as he crosses the Hokage monument and looks down at the village. The village is bathed in twilight in the afternoon as the sun sets, lending it a fleeting beauty. The boy asks, "It's pretty amazing, isn't it?" As he turns to see Naruto standing beside him, staring at the village with his blue eyes open. A slight breeze tousles his hair, and he has a gentle smile on his face. Konohamaru says, "Yeah," with a little gasp. Naruto couldn't hold the boy responsible because, as a child, this was one of his favorite places to hang out. Naruto crosses his legs and sits down as he approaches the cliff. Konohamaru reluctantly sits next to him when he gestures for him to do so. Naruto breaks the silence after the two have been sitting there admiring the village's beauty for a while. His tone is strangely gentle, as if he were speaking to his younger sibling. "So Brad, why did you want to be Hokage again?" "I think I already know it, but I want to hear it to make sure." Konohamaru puts the ends of his scarf around Naruto's neck while glancing at him. "Ever since I've been born, I've always been seen as the honorable grandson of the Sandaime. Never as Konohamaru. I want to become Hokage so that people will acknowledge me as me, not as just my grandfather's grandson." Naruto laughs and smiles at the child. "You know, that was the same reason I had for wanting to become Hokage a while ago, but my sensei told me that it was wrong, and now I understand the Hokage isn't acknowledged because he is the Hokage, rather he is Hokage because he is acknowledged." "I don't understand. Think about it this way, you said you would become Hokage by beating your grandfather, right? Because he's the strongest person in the village, right?" The child smiles. "Well, if you beat him, could you protect Konoha like he did?" "I could once I grew older, maybe," Naruto points out. "That's just it. Hokage Gigi didn't become the strongest after he became Hokage, but he became Hokage because he was the strongest, because he was able to protect the village through the past 3 great shinobi world wars, because whenever anyone in this village is in danger, they know they can rely on him." Naruto stands and spreads his arms, seemingly embracing the horizon. "I want to be acknowledged like that, for people to look up to me, to depend on me. That's why I want to be Hokage, because that means people will have acknowledged that I'm someone they can depend on, like Hokage Gigi and the Yondaime." Naruto keeps his gaze on the village below them, letting his words linger. However, Naruto starts to worry when Konohamaru doesn't reply, but when he turns around and sees that his companion's eyes have widened to absurd proportions, tears are on the verge of falling, and there are equal amounts of respect and worship, he nearly falls off the cliff. Naruto Nichan, that's the wisest thing anyone's ever said to me. "Nichan? Really TT Ibeo?" "Yes," Konohamaru exclaims, leaping to his feet. "My shinobi tutor is always saying, you have to do what I say because that's the shortcut to becoming Hokage," he says, tilting his head and imitating the way the tutor pushes up his glasses. Unfortunately, it appears that Konohamaru is simply flicking someone off because he was not wearing glasses. "What? Why would you want to take a shortcut to becoming Hokage? That just means that you won't be as strong as you could have been." "Yeah, and that's why you should train me. You're really back on that again." They fail to notice 2 shadows vanishing from the forests behind them as the two argue in the waning light. Sarutobi casually examines the seal that the brat had successfully slapped onto his back earlier in the morning, asking, "The boy's not that bad once you actually meet him, is he?" Although it wasn't the first of its kind he had ever seen, it was unquestionably among the greatest. Ebisu presses his glasses up as he leans against the Hokage Tower's rails to his side. "I am surprised, Hokage-sama. From what I had heard around the village, I expected him to be a loud-mouthed braggart with no skills whatsoever to speak of." On the back of his head, a drop of sweat appears. "Well, let's just say the month he spent with Jiraiya-kun did help him a lot more than we thought it did. Of course, thankfully, it seems Jiraiya-sama's good qualities have rubbed off on him." Gazing at the gender-bending seal in his hand, Sarutobi thinks flatly, not just his good qualities. "Well then, Hokage-sama, I will pick up the honorable grandson at the same time tomorrow. I'll take my leave." One moment, Ebisu-kun." Sarutobi extracts 2 scrolls from his robes. "If you could please deliver these, I would be in your debt." "It would be my honor, Hokage-sama." His face feels cool in the morning air as the sun peeks over the horizon. Saturday is the final day of the week and the 3rd day since Team 7 was formed. Haruno Sakura sits to the side and looks at the dark-haired Uchiha, while Uchiha Sasuke sits with a slight frown on his face at the team's regular meeting spot. They're late, again. Sasuke isn't a whiner, however. He is extremely annoyed that his friend Riv teammate has somehow been affected by their sensei's tardiness. He lets out a sigh and looks out to the horizon as though he can make Naruto show up somehow naturally. Naruto and Kakashi, 2 he doesn't seem to be looking for a conversation partner or anything. Sasuke's thoughts stray to the previous 3 days despite his subconscious denial. If nothing else, it had been a strange experience. He had vowed to bring justice to Uchiha Itachi, the man he had once referred to as Ni-chan, who had stolen everything from him, ever since that night 4 years prior. In order to achieve this, he had rejected everything that would hinder his quest for retribution. There were those who wanted to get to know him, those who wanted to be his friends, and those who wanted to provide him with a new family. Naruto was the closest person he had to an acquaintance, and even then, it was because the yellow-haired boy was always pushing the Uchiha to get stronger. And well, not much had changed in that regard. He still makes an effort to stay away from people and ignores his fangirls. But he does feel a certain connection to the boy with the yellow hair. He is so excited about their daily morning team meetings that he can at least say he looks forward to them. Talk about the devil. You're late. Sakura scowls at Kakashi and the boy with the yellow hair who follows him. Sorry, I had to help a kid that fell into a well. And I had to save Ero-sensei from a monster that lived at the bottom of the well. Sakura's palm touches her face as the glare flattens out. Idiots. Sasuke frowns and says, there's 2 of them now. Can't you ever be serious, Naruto? I know Kakashi-sensei is always late, but you shouldn't be picking up his bad habits. Naruto scratches the back of his head and laughs sheepishly. Sorry Sakura-chan, but I actually have a reason I'm late today. Ibeo. After today I'm leaving Team 7. What? 3 bigger shadows chase a smaller one as 4 shadows race through the woods that encircle the forests. The 3 larger shadows seek cover in the shadows of surrounding trees so as not to frighten their prey, while the smaller shadow seeks cover in a bush. Using his headset, Kakashi murmurs, what is your distance to the target? 5 meters. I'm ready anytime, so am I. Okay. Go. They bolt from their hiding place and close in on their target, Tora, the wife of the fire daimyo, and her cat. But the nimble cat quickly leaps out from beneath the first 2 of its assailants and into the third's arms, meowing as she rubs her cheek against them. As Naruto watches the ribbon-wearing cat caress his chest, a drop of perspiration appears on the back of his head. He had apparently developed a liking for animals of all kinds since he started meditating in his free time. Frequently to sort through the memories his clones had passed down to him, the animals would assemble around him as he processed his clones' experiences. As he looks down, he notices Tora giving him the feline equivalent of a puppy dog's eyes, seemingly pleading with him not to take her away. All he can do is return the apologetic smile. Sorry Tora-chan, but you knew this was coming. As though accepting its fate, the cat sighs and hunches its shoulders as Sasuke approaches. He frowns and says, why do you talk to it like that? It's just a stupid cat, it can't understand you? The cat clearly understood the raven-haired boy's remark based on the tick mark on its brow. A yellow eyebrow goes up. The Uchiha had been extremely irritable this morning for some reason. In that case you hold him. As Tora is smothered in the worst marshmallow hell by the fire daimyo's wife, Team 7 can only watch in sympathy with the exception of Sasuke, who has a deadly gleam in his eyes and multiple scratches on his face. Squeeze. Squeeze. We knew you well, Tora-chan, poor thing. Madame Shijimi exclaims, oh my cute little Tora-chan, I was so worried. Oblivious to the pain the poor cat in her arms is going through. After giving some cash, she departs, leaving Team 7, minus Sakura, to rely solely on prey to ensure poor Tora's safety. Sarutobi mentions, now Kakashi's Team 7, while examining a sheet of paper, your next duty is, babysitting an elder's grandson, shopping in the neighboring village inn. No, viewers turn to Sasuke, whose face has miraculously recovered. He takes a step forward with a tone full of disdain and conceit. He says, these omissions are beneath me. As Uchiha I demand a better one. His face is a perfect mask of stoicism, save for a slight frown. What is Sasuke up to today? Kya, how awesome is Sasuke-kun? However, he appears more irate than normal this morning. Well, it appears that little Sasuke-kun is upset about his friend's departure. With concern, the Sandaime remarks, Sasuke-kun, you've never expressed any dislike for these missions before. Is there a reason in particular you want a higher rank mission today? Despite his best efforts, his eyes uncontrollably dart to the side, specifically toward a certain prankster with yellow hair. The Sandaime's face breaks into a knowing smile. That smile bothers Sasuke. Hiruzen's eyes close, but his smile remains unwavering as he says, Team 7 has been doing these D-rank missions for quite some time. I suppose I could allow them a higher rank mission just this once. Sasuke's shocked eyes enlarge. He turns to see a smile on Kakashi's face but similar expressions of incredulity on Sakura's and Naruto's. That smile pleased him even less. From the side, Iruka murmurs, "Ho Hokage-sama. I must protest. They've only been genin for such little time and..." The academy instructor's worries are dismissed by Kakashi, who says, "Ma, it's fine. A simple C-ranked mission should be fine. After we probably won't run into anything I can't handle." Sarutobi picks up a scroll with several C's written on a piece of paper that is attached to it and says, "Kakashi-kun is right, Iruka-kun. A simple C-rank mission should only take a few weeks, and let them see what the outside of the village is like." Sarutobi observes Sasuke's eyes stray to the side as if he is counting something. Then they light up and he bows. "How about this? A C-ranked escort mission. It should take about 3 weeks to complete the mission and return village." "Thank you very much, Hokage-sama. Hold on. Don't get me wrong, I want to do a C-rank mission as much as Sasuke does, but don't I have to meet up with Kurenai-sensei tomorrow?" A chill runs down Naruto's spine. And Enko? "Why not just make a Kage Bunshin and send it tomorrow in your place? I'm sure you could enhance its durability with one of your wonderful seals." Naruto's eyes narrow and then widen in terror. That could. Whoa, wait, how do you know about my seals, Dabayo?" She says. He steps back, his tan skin going pale. Sarutobi is waving a rectangular piece of paper behind his desk with 2 fingers. With a menacing grin, the Sandame declares, "I will be getting you back for this, Naruto-kun." He tucks the seal back into his robe folds. "But that will have to wait until you return from your mission. Tazuna-san, you may come in now." An old man enters, smelling strongly of alcohol. "What's this? They're all such brats," he says as he takes another gulp of sake. "Especially the short one with the stupid-looking face." "Short Ibayo. Stupid-looking face. I'll kill you, Ibayo." Naruto stabs Tazuna, but someone snatches his jacket back, stopping him in his tracks. "Heavy. How much weight does he carry in this jacket?" Kakashi holds the yellow-haired boy in the air while he continues to flail. "No killing our client, Naruto-kun, that would defeat the whole purpose of the mission." He ceases to struggle but keeps glaring at the elderly man. "My name is Tazuna, the super expert bridge builder. I expect you to provide me protection until I get back to my county and complete my bridge," the elderly man says, resolutely ignoring the glare. At the great gates of Konoha, Tazuna observes Naruto handing a copy of himself 2 rectangular pieces of paper with strange scribbles on them. "Okay. This is for when you feel low on chakra, and this is if anything goes wrong with the first seal. Are you sure these brats are qualified? Ahaha, don't worry about it, I'm a Jonin, so I should be able to handle anything that comes our way." "Well, why don't we try this seal out first, just to make sure it's working?" "Wow, I'm surprised, boss, you usually don't have the insight to test out your seals before trying them." "Shut up and take off your shirt." Sakura and Sasuke observe with mild curiosity as Naruto places one of the rectangular pieces of paper on his clone's navel. After the clone has stripped down, only the scribbling is left after it briefly glows and then blends in with the clone's tanned skin. "So, how do you feel?" The clone frowns, but its eyes are closed. "It's weird, I feel stronger, not just like I won't pop if something hits me, but I feel like I could punch through a wall." "That might be a side effect of you having more chakra than me. The seal's basically supposed to absorb the ambient chakra in the air to strengthen you up to a certain limit, but I don't know if that won't have some weird side effects on you. I think it would be better to go ahead and apply the second seal now." The second seal is superimposed over the first, the 2 overlapping, after the clone nods and quickly applies chakra. As the clone puts its clothes back on, Naruto says to it, "Remember, if anything weird happens, activate the second seal. It will expel all of the foreign energy from your system. You might dispel, but better safe than sorry." Naruto turns to his team after the clone departs. Naruto grins and pumps his fist, saying, "Let's go, Yash. Now that everything's taken care of." 2 of the 5 individuals in the group narrow their eyes as a pool of water ripples in the middle of the road. The puddle couldn't have been the remains of a previous rainstorm because it hasn't rained in a week and the weather was too dry. Naruto picks up the pace, falling in time with his sensei. "Ero sensei," he says in a low enough voice that his teammates behind him cannot hear him. Naruto nods and rejoins his teammates, saying, "Get ready to defend yourself, but wait until I can confirm their target." It turns out that 2 shinobi with a chain between 2 clawed gauntlets emerge from the puddle. As soon as they pass it, they run, encircling Kakashi with the chain and tugging. The genin's eyes enlarge at the heinous murder, and blood splatters as the copy nin is torn to pieces. 1 down. The 2 then emerge behind Naruto, the chain sweeping in his direction, but the boy with the yellow hair does not move. 2 down. What is that fool up to? Reaching into his kunai holster, Sasuke leaps into the air. He tosses a kunai and a shuriken in one motion, the kunai pinning the chain to a tree and the shuriken tangled it. He crouches down on the men's outstretched gauntlets. He kicks his feet back while holding the gauntlets in his hands. Knocking the two shinobi back, a metallic noise is heard, the chain breaks, and the two shinobi separate, one pursuing Naruto and the other Tazuna. Sakura leaps before the bridge builder, kunai in hand, saying, "Tazuna-san, get behind me." However, the pink-haired Kunoichi would be easily killed by the kunai, which is nothing in comparison to the shinobi's clawed gauntlet. Would everything end like this? On their first out-of-town mission, were they killed by enemy shinobi? Dynamic entry. The ground crackles beneath them as an orange blur slams into the man's back as Naruto rises from the unconscious foe. Sakura's eyes, which are wet from unshed tears, enlarge, revealing the shinobi's sandal imprint on his back. "You okay, Sakura-chan?" Sasuke sideways dodges a swipe that barely scrapes his cheek. He strikes the man's torso several times, leaps and spins, and ends with a kick that breaks the man's breathing apparatus. A poof causes the previously frozen Naruto to vanish. Picking up the man at his feet, Naruto carries him over and dumps him on his unconscious ally, saying, "You might as well come out now, freakin' lazy arrow-sensei." Kakashi emerges from the bush, scratching his head like a sheep. "Well, you look like you had it handled so well." Naruto rolls his eyes and starts tying the enigmatic shinobi to a tree as they stand around the shinobi who are bound. Kakashi remarks, "These guys are chunin from the village hidden in the mists. They're known to keep fighting no matter what." One of the shinobi glares at the silver-haired shinobi and asks, "How did you know we were there?" After exchanging glances, Kakashi gestures for Naruto to respond. He gives this sensei a sidelong glance but nods, saying, "There was no way for the puddle to be there in the middle of a sunny day, especially when it hasn't rained in days. If you knew they were there, then why did you let the brats fight?" Kakashi's gaze straight at Naruto. Well, onyx and blue eyes light up with joy at the praise, while green eyes drop to the ground in embarrassment. "I was confident that my team could manage themselves if things got out of hand. However, there was something I had to learn. Whom were these two aiming for?" "What are you saying?" Kakashi looks over at Tazuna. "Meaning? Were they pursuing us or you? We were not told that you were being pursued by shinobi. Our only goal was to keep you safe from gangs and thieves. Now, this mission is at least a B rank. It would have been a costly B rank if shinobi were known to be pursuing you. You undoubtedly have your justifications, but lying about the specifics of the mission leads to issues. We are currently working outside of our responsibilities." "Well, if this is our only concern, we ought to be alright. Whoever comes next, I'll have no trouble kicking their ass." Furthermore, the Ondaime might have said, "Below courage there is nothing. Once we tend to Sasuke's wound, we should be all right," Naruto says, waving his arm. "Dobi, what are you discussing? Your cheek has a tiny cut. They had poison laced on their claws." Naruto kicks the two Kiri shinobi at his feet. "We simply have to return to the village to get you treated as soon as possible, and then we can leave." "That won't work, Naruto-kun." Kakashi interrupts, "We'll have to explain to them how Sasuke-kun received that cut once you return. And this mission will be automatically promoted to a B rank if we do that. Therefore, unless one of you wishes to remove the poison, I'll follow through." Kakashi-sensei, with a thick flush on her cheeks and a tiny trail of blood down her lips. Sakura yells, turning to face Sasuke and starting to giggle, sounding suspiciously like the ones Kakashi would let out while reading his little orange book. Sasuke blushes and backs off, not liking it, but if he had to choose between Sakura, who appears to be about to rape him, and... He turns to face his companion and says, "Naruto." He crosses his arms and his tan skin turns a pale green. "No, not going to occur. I will never kiss a man, especially if it's his face." Kakashi turns to Tazuna and says, "Well, I'm going to leave this one up to Sasuke-kun. Why don't you come over here with me and explain the situation, Tazuna-san?" The boy with the raven hair reacts by moving closer to Naruto as Sakura gets closer to Sasuke. "It's the lesser of two evils. I promise that she will suck out more than just the poison if she puts her lips on me." "I don't swing that way, damn it." "Next, have a clone perform it. You claimed that you desired the position of Hokage in order to gain respect and rely on others. Now I'm relying on you." As the boy with the raven hair's words hit home, Naruto grimaced. Sakura, whose hair reveals her eyes, licks her lips and giggles again as the two boys turn to face her. "Come here, Sasuke-kun." Her tone is full of lust, which is inappropriate for a 12-year-old girl's voice. "Please, Naruto." TCH, almost frantically, he uses his chakra to burn an elaborate design on a blank rectangular sheet of paper, wipes a piece of the Kiri shinobi's poison onto it, and then slaps it on the Uchiha's face, sending him sprawling backwards. "What the devil was that for? You were acting strangely, TT Ibeo. I won't have to kiss your face because that seal should get rid of all the poison in your system." Kami forbid he actually put his mouth on Sasuke's face, he would never get over it. The yellow-haired boy gets a chill. 6 people are on a small boat that is moving through the water. 3 of them are men, one of whom is rowing the boat. One is a girl who is busy glaring at another. The final 2 are both boys, one of whom is rubbing his cheek and glaring at the other. After that, the boat moves silently until it arrives at a small harbor, where Tazuna and Team 7 disembark. For me, this is a goodbye and nice appearance. Yeah, thank you so much. Team 7 and their client are left at the small dock as the tiny boat speeds away with the sound of a motor coming to life. As they leave the dock and head out onto the road, Kakashi muses, since it was Chunin before, this time it'll be a Jonin-level opponent. For a few minutes, the group travels in silence, each member thinking about something different. This is strange. I'm sure someone will stop us before we reach our destination, but it's been strangely quiet. My cheek hurts even now. Did he really need to give me such a hard slap? Wow, Sasuke-kun looks amazing. Did I bring enough ramen with me? A dull thunk of metal hitting wood echoes, and Naruto immediately throws a kunai at the rustling bush next to them. Sakura and Sasuke do not notice, but Kakashi notices him make a cross sign as he brings his hands together to check the bush. Enemies. A tiny brown bunny with its ears folded down and a kunai impaled just above its head emerges from the bush. Naruto picks it up right away and starts petting it tenderly against his cheek, saying, "Oh, I'm so sorry, Bunny-san, I didn't intend to cause you harm." Sakura starts berating Naruto for putting the poor animal in danger right away, but Kakashi and Sasuke both observe the creature's fur color and say, "I'm pretty sure that rabbits are supposed to have white fur around this time of year. That means stay down." When a huge chunk of metal flies over them and embeds itself in a tree, a man lands on the handle, and Naruto drops the furry creature and lunges at Sakura, forcing her to the ground as Kakashi tackles Tazuna and Sasuke dives to the ground. The man is tall, noticeably muscular, with pale skin, short, spiky black hair, brown eyes, and small, barely perceptible eyebrows. He is shirtless, with only a belt covering his chest, and his legs are covered in baggy pants with striped patterns, while his arms are covered by mimetic wrist warmers that reach up to his elbows and another pair of leg warmers that have the same pattern. His face is wrapped in bandages in a mask-like fashion, and his headband is sideways on his head. Behind him, Naruto, Sasuke, and Sakura are all tense but remain motionless, sensing the man's bloodthirst as his brown eyes turn on him. Momochi Zabuza, a rank missing nin from Kirigakure, what a surprise, he says in a casual tone that almost sounds like he is discussing the weather. They all comply when Kakashi says, "Everyone get back, this one is a whole other level." He raises a hand to his headband. "You look like Sharingan Kakashi, I'm sorry, but the old man is mine," the now named Zabuza says, craning his neck. When the headband is removed, Sasuke's eyes enlarge as he recognizes the distinctive bloodline of his now deceased clan. A blood-red eye with 3 comas encircling the pupil. Protect and surround Tazuna-san. We'll work as a team on that. Naruto makes sure not to make any noise as he moves through the shrubbery. Upon entering the bush, he had already created a cage bunshin after spotting the telltale sign of a kawarimi. It's just a gut feeling, but it's better safe than sorry. He lands lightly on a branch and discovers his prey, as he had suspected. A Kiri Hunter Nin appears to be crouching just outside the field of battle. Blue eyes narrow, and he slips off the branch, landing in a crouch with the leaves and twigs crunching softly beneath his feet. He approaches the shinobi with deliberate, slow steps, being careful not to draw the shinobi's attention to himself, and he mentally thanks Kami for the stealth skills he has developed over the years from his antics. Snap. When a twig snaps, Naruto's eyes widen and he dives back as 3 senbon impale the area where he was just standing. His senses warn him to duck, and he just avoids being knocked unconscious by a kick. He steps back, blocking the follow-up kick and jab, but a right hook slips past his guard, hitting him on the cheek and throwing him back slightly. He tries to counter with a punch of his own, but the Hunter Nin leaps back quickly. "Why were you observing me, and who are you?" The Hunter Nin is dressed rather loosely, but he also has long, silky hair, so Naruto blinks in surprise at the feminine voice. The man in front of him was about as fast as bushy brows without his weights, but he didn't hit nearly as hard. "That's my line," he says, wiping a little blood from his lips and putting the issue of his opponent's gender in the back of his mind. "You were the one that swapped with Rabbit-san. The other man is too large to fit inside that little bush." The 2 shinobi start to pace around one another, keeping their eyes fixed on their opponent as they assess each other's threat level and, in the worst-case scenario, determine whether they can defeat them. The tense silence is broken by the Hunter Nin's statement, "I am a Hunter Nin from Kiri, hunting the dangerous missing nin Momochi Zabuza." I decided to shadow you and your team after learning that he would be hunting your client. Well, I think that guy is going to be attacking my team soon, so you better go. Naruto nods, letting the tension out of his stance, and decides that's a good explanation. You have good reflexes. Naruto's eyes widen as he hears something flying through the air and flings himself to the side just as two Senbon speed past where he had been, impaling themselves into a tree in front of him. Those would have hit him in the neck and probably killed him. Knowing that the girl, boy, person was too young to be a hunter nin, Naruto gets up and gives the hunter nin a glare. So you're with the brow less wonder? He raises a hand to take off his jacket and asks. The hunter nin chuckles, strangely full of humor, and says, yes, if you could just take your team and go. That would be better. Her tone is one of straightforward honesty rather than condescension. I don't wish to harm you. She is stating the obvious fact that he will lose if they fight. You know, he says, unzipping his jacket and raising a yellow eyebrow, I'm pretty sure 2 needles in my neck are pretty harmful. They wouldn't have killed you, he shrugged. They wouldn't have killed you, but they would have put you in a death-like state, he says, removing his jacket and letting it fall to the ground with a crash as a dense fog rolls in through the surrounding trees and shrubbery. Is this your response then? Sasuke and Sakura had not had enough training to fight someone of this caliber, and if this person joined Zabuza, Kakashi would have no chance. It would be a helpless battle, like an animal desperately trying to avoid drowning, but he must do it. The hunter nin to Zabuza and Naruto to his team are both tense as the air gets more and more saturated with moisture. Their forms fade and they move, their already buried forms disappearing into the mist. The atmosphere is tense, like 2 animals staring down at each other, and although neither wants to hurt the other, they know it is their duty. Tension permeates the air, which is tinted a ghostly white by chakra-infused water. The 3 genin form a protective circle around their client, with their sensei at the forefront, keeping watch over their unseen enemy. They hear the voice saying, 8 points, larynx, spine, lungs, liver, jugular, subclavian artery, kidneys, heart, which one should I choose? And the inexperienced are filled with fear, realizing that it isn't a bluff or a boast, but that the man is just picking the way he wants to kill them most. They are merely flies, buzzing around as 2 predators get ready to fight for their meal, and the genin feel as though their life is being choked out of them, as though a single mistake or move is all that stands between them and death. In response, Kakashi starts to release his own ki, the fusion of his chakra and intent, allowing it to force Zabuza's intent back. The pressure is unbearable, and sweat drips down their faces. The raven-haired boy's whole body trembles as he says, I can't take this. The demon's cold, calculating eyes are on him, and he can feel them. I'd almost rather die now and get it over with, he says, feeling the business end of the kunai in his hand come dangerously close to his own throat. Hello. Do you have anything else? Even though they can't see his face, they can almost imagine the arrogant smile on his whiskered face. His voice has the arrogant assurance it hasn't had for the past week. Even though it was only a show and a hollow boast, it served its purpose. I have dreams worse than this. Ibeo. You ain't got nothing on me. Maro Teme. 1. He has dreams about being in front of the enormous cage with the red eye, which is roughly 3 times wider than he is tall, but he refuses to tell them. As Naruto successfully destroys the atmosphere with a rusty spoon, a drop of perspiration appears on the back of Kakashi's head. One of Zabuza's non-existent eyebrows twitches quickly in the mists. Okay, I think I'm going to kill the shrimp first. On the road to the wave country, 2 whirlwinds collide in the woods, repeatedly, again. A dark green turtleneck sweatshirt with a blue battle kimono over it, baggy dark green pants, a sash of the same color, and a mask with a red wave design are worn by one of these whirlwinds, while the other is dressed in orange pants, a dark blue shirt with an orange spiral in the middle, and a black headband. They fight for the people they care about, not just for the sake of fighting. They can still have fun during the fight, though. A barrage of strikes erupt from his side. Stop the punch, avoid the kick under the follow-up kick. Ducky counters with a punch of his own, but his opponent effortlessly sidesteps it and vanishes back into the fog. He mumbles angrily, this mist is really annoying, while looking around for any movement. In contrast to his opponent, he lacks any discernible ability to locate his opponent without the use of his sight, and the androgynous shinobi was making the most of that. He blurs his hand and throws a kunai in the direction of the voice, saying, you're quite strong for someone so young. 3 sharpened needles pierce the air. In exchange, he avoids most of them, but he gets cut by one of the metal needles. Thanks, you're pretty strong yourself, he says, concentrating his chakra and creating the ram seal. He is surrounded by a golden aura that drives the mist away. It is a mist made of chakra infused into water rather than a natural one. He could simply use a seal to dispel it, but drawing it would take time. Over the course of the month, He had not developed enough control to be able to instantly burn entire seals into surfaces like the Yondaime, but he had advanced to the point where he could make tiny, straightforward, to him, pieces of a seal, one at a time, and connect them to form the entire seal. He would need time, though. He uses all of his senses to look for the hunter nin in the haze. He can still use his other 4 senses even though it impairs his vision, taste, smell, touch, and sound. Only 2 of those 4 are helpful to him. He has experience with one of those 2. He blocks out sight, smell, touch, and taste in favor of concentrating his senses on his ears. The sound of lightly crunching leaves can be heard 10 meters to the left. A cross-shaped seal is created when the blue eyes open. Taiju Kage Bunshin no Jutsu. 10 shadow clones appear and dash in the direction of the scene. Naruto is aware that they have no chance against the hunter nin. However, their purpose was only to stall the androgynous shinobi, not to defeat them. He pulls a white, rectangular, blank sheet of paper out of his pouch. A senbon to the neck and chest instantly dispels 2 clones, but the others rush forward. Attempting to encircle the agile hunter nin, he creates the seal's base and inserts a fragment of the surrounding mist to act as a catalyst, drawing the remaining mist into the seal. A kick to the solar plexus dispels another clone, a 5th to a senbon between the eyes, and a 4th by a knee to the stomach. The hunter nin appears to strike more forcefully and quickly because they are merely clones. The base is surrounded by 2 smaller seals, one of which reinforces the base and the other prevents moisture from destroying the paper. 2 more clones fall, and their collarbones are broken by 2 downward elbow strikes. Another is caught in the throat by a lashing kick. All that remains between its creator and the adversary in front of it is a single clone, a final seal to keep the chakra and water apart, and a crossing seal to attract the mist infused with chakra to the seal. He uses a thread to secure the seal to a kunai. He could just turn it on here, but it would work better if he turned it on close to the source. He throws the kunai in the direction the mist first rolled in through. After pulling his arm back, he releases a chakra pulse to activate the seal. Just as he is reminded of the dispelling of his last clone, almost as if drawn by a vacuum, the mist immediately starts to move back in the direction he threw the kunai, exposing the hunter nin in shock. A smile spreads across his scruffy face. Found ya tt ibeo. It's over. A kunai stands behind Zabuza Kakashi, posing to cut the missing nin's throat. Zabuza says in a disdainful tone, "Heh, it's over? You don't get it? There is no way." Behind Kakashi, the true Zabuza emerges as the man transforms into water. "That you could defeat me with your monkey-like imitations." In an attempt to cut Kakashi in half horizontally, he swings his blade. Zabuza permits the blade's momentum to swing a full circle, causing it to burrow into the ground as Kakashi crouches beneath it. Zabuza uses his hands to spin around fully as he follows the momentum of his blade, raising one leg in the air. Zabuza's foot propels the copy nin through the air as his eyes widen in surprise. With a splash, he lands in the surrounding waters and rises to the surface. He is initially unaware of it because he is groggy from being kicked through the air, but as soon as he does, panic takes over. This water isn't typical. It weighs too much. Zabuza emerges behind Kakashi and says, "Fool, Sweden, sir. Arrow sensei, get down." Kakashi plunges beneath the water as his eyes enlarge. Zabuza turns just in time to see the 2 male genin completing their hand seals and a lone shuriken flying in his direction. Shuriken Kage Bunshin no Jutsu. Kaden. Gokakyu, fire release. Great fireball. A fireball envelops them from behind, multiplying the lone shuriken into hundreds. Shit Sweden. Suijinheki. At the approaching storm of steel and fire, the water from the neighboring lake surges and swirls. The 2 genin's jutsu are easily defeated by the jonins, with the water putting out the fire and the raging torrents smashing the chakra structures. Having entered the lake in time to witness Naruto produce a clone to seize Tazuna and the 4 jumping out of the way of the destructive water jutsu, Kakashi mentally exhales with relief. That's quite interesting. I don't think I've ever seen that jutsu used that way. Behind him, a rough voice responds, "HMPH water jutsu reversible like that?" The Sharingan in his left eye spins as he turns to glare at the man with the cleaver. His team nearly lost their lives as a result of his unexpected underestimation of his opponent. There was a good chance that one of Naruto and Sasuke would have died in the process, even though they might have been able to free him. "You almost had me there, but it won't happen again." Whoa, Naruto exhales in wonder as he gazes up at the surrounded frozen dome of mirrors. He is surrounded by 21 floating mirrors, 12 of which are at ground level, 8 of which are floating above the 12 at an angle to the ground, and one last mirror is at the top. Only the hunter nin is reflected in these mirrors. Little snowflakes are starting to fall from the sky, and he can feel the chill from the mirrors gnawing at his skin. "I am sorry, but I believe Zabuza-sama will require my assistance soon now that you have dispelled his mists. As such, I must defeat you now." A flash senbons are flying at him from all sides. He starts deflecting every senbon he can find. After taking 2 kunai out of his holster, few senbon are able to penetrate his skin, and even fewer are able to cut him. One more flash, raindrops of metal needles fall on him. The first gate opens as the air pulses. Naruto's speed increases 5-fold now that he is not constrained by his subconscious. The senbon drops to the ground as he raises the kunai in his hands. A third flash, he attempts to launch as many senbon as he can into the air. There are several cuts on his bare skin, but none penetrate his body. The first gate causes his muscles to tear. He is slowing down, and he knows that he is reducing his speed, and the hunter nin is following suit. It makes sense because such a fantastic method could not be without repercussions. The voice appears to reverberate from every mirror simultaneously. I don't want to have to kill you, but you won't stand down, will you? Naruto takes a brief break to catch his breath. He observes that their voice has a hint of melancholy. He says firmly, I won't let you hurt my team. I see. Naruto hardly has time to wonder where the hunter nin is keeping all of them when more senbon rain falls on him. He drops to one knee as 3 senbon pierce his thigh. They are precious to you, aren't they? The boy who has been knocked down laughs and hobbles back up, grinning. That's right, and that's why I can't just give up without a fight. The kunai clatters to the ground as 2 needles sink into his left arm, causing it to go limp at his side. You are truly strong. Tell me, what is your name? Uzumaki. Naruto. Naruto-san, I will tell your team you fought bravely for them. His eyelids start to feel heavy as more needles pierce his body. He might have to use that move at this rate. Don't you dare underestimate me. I told you my name, so tell me yours. Haku. The mirror images lift their arms, clenching a senbon between each finger. You won't be able to dodge this next attack. I'll try not to kill you. Hey, he says, clenching his fingers and crossing one arm over his chest with the palm facing out. I could say the same to you, Haku-chan. A flash, brighter than the others, and a hail of senbon rush in Naruto's direction from all directions. He closes his eyes as the needles around him seem to move slowly toward him. At least he would be alive. But super bushy brows sensei would probably roast his ass for this. His body reacts when his chakra collects just beneath his stomach. Gate of Wonder. Kiyomon. Open. Sweden. Suiryude. Sweden. Suiryude. Both Zabuza and Kakashi come to a halt when they sense a tremendous chakra release from the nearby forests. Naruto-kun, is this chakra? Kakashi's eyes enlarge. The boy's chakra was already higher than normal and continues to rise. It's not a clone, it's the original, the one that had slipped away before Zabuza came out. There's another. Zabuza looks up as the cold bites at his skin. Was Haku's Makio Hyosho? Demonic mirroring ice crystals. Found? It's snowing. This feeling. Was there another brat with Kakashi? To assist their respective subordinates, the 2 Jonins run off the water. The men are stopped in their tracks by a shockwave caused by a huge explosion and a flash of light that shakes the ground. They are protected by dirt, dust, and debris, which makes them raise their arms in defense. I'm glad Naruto-kun didn't employ this tactic during the bell test because it's such power. Shit, Haku. Zabuza's mind is filled with fear and panic as he recalls Haku's passing. With Kakashi at his heels, the man takes off while channeling chakra to his feet. He reaches the crater where he first perceived the enormous spike of chakra, past the shattered earth and broken trees. 2 kids were lying on the ground, roughly 2 meters apart, in the middle of the blast zone. Even though the girl's battle kimono, a sleeve of her sweater, and all of her exposed skin were slightly burned, with a thin layer of soot covering her mask, Haku seemed to be in good condition with his exposed skin covered in burns and the top right portion of his shirt blasted off. The other child, the yellow-haired brat Kakashi had been with, looked to be in a similar condition. The boy with the yellow hair mumbles from his spot on the ground, damn it, I knew that was a bad idea. Although the chakra surge from opening the gates had given him new energy, his muscles had essentially been reduced to mush. That was a pretty cool thing you did with the mirrors, Haku-chan. Probably saved both of us. Containing the blast was the only way to stop it from blowing the both of us away, and by the way, I'm a boy. I am very sorry, Haku, but how absurdly feminine you are will haunt me for the rest of my life. No offense. None taken, I guess. As Kakashi leaps out from behind him and lands in front of Naruto, Zabuza leaps over to Haku, shaking off the ridiculousness of the situation. There is a strange understanding between the 2 men, and they nod slightly to one another. Zabuza lifts Haku into his arms and says, I'll leave things here for today, Kakashi, but mark my words, that old man will die by my blade. He takes care not to touch any of the girl's burns. He raises a questioning eyebrow, but she dismisses it with a wave of her good arm, indicating that she will tell him later after the 2 vanish. Kakashi lets out a sigh and releases the tension in his body. His face is filled with shock and horror as he turns to face the boy who is lying on the ground. Kakashi couldn't hold the boy responsible when he had first encountered an extremely androgynous shinobi. He most likely had the same appearance under his mask. You okay down there, Naruto-kun? I feel dirty in an extremely wrong way. Yes, the boy appeared to be alright. So why did you tell him you were a boy? I didn't like how he immediately started calling me Haku-chan. While I can tell he didn't mean it offensively, I still couldn't help myself. That's cruel, Haku, really cruel.
So that's it for today. I hope you guys enjoyed it. Don't forget to like, share and subscribe to the channel for more awesome stories like this. Thank you. See you all in my next video.